Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku was her hero part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from fanfiction. So let's start the video. The boy by the lake. I met a girl by the lake. Truthfully, I met her by a river once. A long time ago, I had been knocked in by 𝗏𝗏 after he blasted me in the chest. She pulled me out and was one of the only people I met who didn't look down on me for my lack of quirk. Her large round eyes bore straight into my soul, and she said that anyone could be a hero if they tried. The part one remember best is the little rib bit she added at the end. I will never forget that in all the years since then, I always remembered them. Not when All Might made me his successor or when I passed the entrance exam to get into you. She was my angel. This beautiful frog princess rose from her castle to save a sad little boy crying in a river. Imagine my surprise when on the first day I saw her in my class. It was her. I instantly knew it. I wanted to run up and ask if she remembered me. But why would she? Also, I didn't know how to talk to girls. I had only ever talked to my mom and recovery girl. I got a sentence out to the girl that saved me from falling at the entrance exam. I didn't even get a chance to talk to her after the encounter with the 0-pointer. I had broken my arm by going at 100% instead of the 8% that I could handle. My legs thankfully weren't hurt, but I had torn ligaments and muscles throughout them. I even saw her on the acceptance letter offering me some of her points as a thank you for saving her. Ochaco 𝗬𝗓𝗏 was her name. Luckily no one noticed me staring. My attention was drawn as the mean blue-haired guy from the entrance exam came stalking up to me like I was about to get yelled at for something, probably my tie. I couldn't tie it right to save my life. I watched hundreds of videos, and still, it looked terrible. "It's you," he said rather loudly. "I must apologize. You discerned the true meaning behind the exam. I must bow to you, sir, and offer my sincerest apologies. I am 𝗧𝗵𝗲 of 𝗬𝗵𝗲 Junior High." It took a moment to register everything he said to me, as his robotic chopping motion had me wonder if he was a part robot. Sheepishly, I rubbed the back of my head. I didn't know that there was another part of the exam. I simply saw someone in danger, and my feet moved before my brain could even register what I was doing. Though maybe you should not judge people so quickly next time. Never assume someone's intentions. I shall take your words to heart. Let us begin again. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, he said, sticking out his hand. Taking his hand in a proper handshake, I replied, 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Before he could say anything, the door flew open, and the brunette from the exam was panting and grabbing her breath. "Are you?" As she was bent over, her hand on her knees, I started to say before she held up one finger. "Made it. I thought I was going to be late," she said before she looked up and her eyes widened. "Oh hey, it's you. I never got to thank you for saving me." "It was what anyone would have done, Ochaco." "How did you know my name?" she asked, bouncing forward. She was very close, almost too close, but I couldn't process the ability to step back. I heard it when you went to TT talk to President Mike after the exam. I managed to get out." She stepped back and lowered her head, peeking to look back at me through her eyelashes. "You saw that." Before I could answer, our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a yellow caterpillar. Stupidly, I thought that for a moment before it was revealed to be Mr. Aizawa, our homeroom teacher. "If you are here to make friends, you can leave now. If not, grab a gym uniform and meet me at the athletic field in 15 minutes. Anyone late will be expelled." "But what about orientation?" Ochaco asked. "Waste of time. 14 minutes 50 seconds. I saw Bakugo race out the back door and other students moving to do the same. "We should hurry, 𝗬𝗓𝗏," I said as I quickly went to my desk and grabbed my uniform. Luckily, she did the same. 11 minutes and 49 seconds later, we were all standing on the UA athletic field. I had been here multiple times with All Might, but it felt different today. No one gets expelled yet. Good. Next time you should be able to do this in under 10 minutes. Aizawa said. "Time is the one commodity you can never get back. Wasting it is foolish and illogical. I will not have my time wasted, nor will I waste yours either. You are here to be heroes, and I have limited time to ensure you become just that. I will give you 100% of my energy, and you will give me 100% of yours. I am going to push till you break. then I am going to make you farther. You will truly learn what it means to go beyond. If you do not give me 100%, then there is no place for you in this class. I would remove you and promote someone from general studies that would eat midnight cooking if I asked them to. I promise you this as long as you give me all you got, I will not abandon you. As long as you dig deep and claw for your dream, I will not leave you behind. Do you understand? Yes, sensei. My class and I shouted back. I was feeling instead pumped up from his speech and could tell from the others' faces that they were too. For some illogical reason, schools still have you perform your physical fitness tests without using your quirk. This is done under the guise that everyone is created equally, which is just plain wrong. Some of you are born with physical quirks, while others are born with quirks that will aid your life in other ways. Some tall, some short. While it is true that you can learn to overcome your shortcomings, it is illogical to tell everyone that they are the same when truly they are not. Today we are going to perform those same tests, but you are going to use your quirks. Please dig deep and find a way to use them to push yourselves. I already told you that I expect 100% effort. Now show me what you kids can do. Today you go beyond. Plus ultra. We scream. Bakugo, you took first place in villain points. How far could you throw a softball in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo replied. Grab a ball from the bucket, step into the circle, and use your quirk to do it. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. I watch Bakugo give me a dirty look and hear him click his tongue as he walks but steps into the circle. He rears back and with a heroic cry of die, the ball rockets off into the distance. 705 meters, Aizawa says, holding up a device. Now that everyone understands, let's get started. Line up in twos for the 50-yard dash. I watch as everyone forms up into two lines. I look over at whom I am going to be racing, and it's a kid with yellow hair with back marks that kind of look like a lightning bolt. I offer him a smile and extend my hand. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, nice to meet you. I am somewhat holding my breath, unsure of the response. I am thrilled when he smiles back and shakes my hand. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, nice to meet you too. We shake hands before Bakugo comes up and glares at 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Get lost, lightning hair. Sadly, I watch the boy throw up his hands and step aside. Bakugo leans in and, in a growl, says, It won't matter how much effort you put in. They are going to see just how much of a fucking Deku you are. I don't know how you cheated your way in, but after today I bet not only will they kick you out of the heroic course but all of you, you bastard. This isn't 𝗧𝗪𝗓, Bakugo. None of the teachers will cover for you, so you had better watch what you do. Besides, after today you are going to be chasing me. The fuck you say? You heard me. We are up, I tell him as we approach the line. I am annoyed. I had hoped that I wouldn't be in the same class as Bakugo, but I will not let him ruin my life anymore. Today I show him that things are different. As we line up, I see him put his hands behind him, palms out. I know he will use his quirk to launch himself. I smile and take my runner's stance, full cowling 8%. I feel one for all answer my call, the green lightning wrapping around my body. I see Bakugo's eyes go wide. Then the signal gun fires and pushes off, creating a dust cloud. His confusion costs him his time 4.78 seconds. Mine 2.15. As he crossed the finish line, I saw him lunge towards me to grab hold of my uniform. What the fuck was that, Deku? Have you been lying to me this whole time? I smack his hand away from grabbing me. I can tell that this pisses him off even more. I see his hand begin to spark, and it looks like he is about to swing, when suddenly the sparks stop, and he is wrapped in a gray scarf. What the hell is this? Why can't I move or use my quirk? My would-be attacker bellows, futility thrashing around. It is a titanium fiber capture weapon, and I erased your quirk. Mr. Bakugo, unless you would like to bypass being demoted to general studies and straight to expulsion, I suggest you keep your hand and quirk to yourself. I will not waste my time on some child who cannot handle that he lost a race. Now either behave or leave. You are giving me dry eye. It all clicks for me. I look at my teacher with dawning recognition. You're a racer head. Surprised you heard of me, kid. Runners to your line, he yells, returning to the class. I walk away from Bakugo, who goes to stand out from the rest of the class, and he looks like he is sulking like a child. I ignore him. Thankfully, I get to see the girl from the river race against 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 I notice 𝗬𝗧𝗏𝗏 use her quirk to make her clothes lighter while the other racer clears the race in 2 jumps for a time of 5.13. When I hear Ochaco's time, 7.25, I wince, but she comes over to me smiling at how it was better than her middle school time. Deku, that was an awesome race, she says as she comes over. I wince at the name. WW, why did you call me Deku? I ask, my heart almost thudding out of my chest as my memories of Aldera flood over me. Isn't that your name? I heard that loudmouth blonde call you that. Did I just majorly mess up? She looks down at the ground, and I relax, seeing how she made a mistake. My name is Izuku Midoriya. He calls me DD Deku as an insult. It means useless. Her hands fly to her mouth. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. I thought it was short for Dikaru, meaning you can do it. I am sorry. I wasn't trying to insult you, I swear. It's okay. I believe you, but please call me Izuku or Emma Midoriya. Just not that. I promise I won't ever say that again, she responded. Can we still be friends? Why you want to be my friend? Of course, you did save me from the 0-pointer. Who wouldn't want to be friends with such an awesome guy? I never thought I could be so happy. Having an actual friend after being alone is fantastic. I would very much like to be friends with you, Ochaco. Sweet. A boy by the river. I once met a boy by the river. Some bully had knocked him in. When I pulled him out, how he looked at me made me feel like I could be a hero. Despite my appearance of looking like a frog, I could bring a smile to people's faces. He seemed so sad. When I pressed, he told me he was quirkless, which was why the other kids wouldn't play with him. I told him the truth that it didn't matter that he was quirkless and that he could do anything anyone else could do. That being judged for something he had no control over was dumb. Trust me, I know what dumb judgment is like. Sometimes I would think of him when I felt down, or like maybe the other kids were right and that I couldn't be a hero. The way he looked at me and his smile would help push those thoughts away and help drive me forward. I wondered if I would ever see him again. I was overjoyed when I walked into UA for the first time. I had entered the hero course. Watching the others begin to file into class was interesting, seeing the different quirks. I was happy to see Kyoka and Toru from the entrance exam. We exchanged numbers and talked while waiting for our results. It was then the door opened, and in he walked. I recognized him immediately. Something resonated deep inside me, singing and crying out as soon as I saw him. I wondered if he remembered me, but probably not. I sulked. For some reason that hurt. I couldn't explain it. Something about the fact that he may not remember a meeting over a decade ago was causing me discomfort, a feeling I wasn't familiar with. I mean, how many frog girls were out in the world? When he looked my way, I thought I could see a look of recognition, and I felt an excited ribbit escape my lips. Before anything else could happen, the Tenya Ida, who had been arguing with someone named Bakugo about his feet on the desk, ran up and started talking to him. She heard his name through Izuku Midoriya. It made me giddy for some reason. Why was that? But I knew his name now. Some busty brunette burst in. They seemed to know each other somehow. She was too close to him. She shouldn't be that close. I felt an almost primal urge to pull her away from him. This wasn't right. This wasn't me. I needed to talk to my mom as soon as I got home. I could handle this for now. I just needed to be calm. I am thankful for the quirk test. It at least provides a distraction. Like when he bent over during the seated toe touch, or how his shirt rode up to reveal some surprisingly lovely abs. What the hell is wrong with me? Sue, you okay? Kyoka asked. You have been all over the place today? I am not sure, I replied honestly. Maybe it's just the sensation of being at UA and the hero course. I know what you mean, Toru exclaimed. I am unsure if I want to laugh, cry, scream, or throw up. Today has been a bit much. I thought they might ease us into it, but Mr. Aizawa is having none of that shit, Kyoka said as she slipped off her gym uniform. Do you guys want to stop by the cafe on the way home? I do, said Toru. I can't, sorry, I need to get home, Sue said, fastening her skirt. Mom is working late tonight, and Dad is out of town till tomorrow. That sucks. Then tomorrow? Kyoka asked. I promise, 𝐒𝐻𝐢 replied. I raced home. I hated lying to them, but I needed to talk to my mom ASAP. I burst in, making her jump in surprise, and ran to her. I word vomited all of it. Everything that 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was making me feel. I felt almost desperate as I finished for her to tell me what was wrong. The look in her eyes was not one I was ready for, nor was her answer. You have found your mate. A mate. It didn't hold for every poor soul born with an animal quirk, but once it manifested in your line, there was always a chance it could happen. Those in the community kept quiet about it, not as much as going into heat, but it was still not discussed regularly. Those with what was to be considered mutant quirks were often looked down upon or mistreated, especially if it made the bearer appear more animalistic. They would be treated harshly or fetishized. Mirko could attest to that side of the spectrum. It was a little-known thing to the outside, but the fearsome rabbit warrior would come and speak to groups of kids with animal mutant quirks. Despite her fierce reputation everywhere else, the woman was soft and kind with them. They talked about changes and things they alone would have to deal with outside of the typical responses and changes that all children must undergo one day. It was the hope that if you were to be one with the trait of imprinting on someone, that the person was in a similar situation and would brand back. These unions were blessed with happiness for the couple as they would connect on deeper levels. Sue's parents were one such example. Her mother and father had imprinted upon each other and, after dating for 2 months, had gotten married and had been happily ever since. The much less talked about occasions was when this happened to someone who didn't imprint back, who would use the situation to their advantage to manipulate and control the other. Many dark stories would circulate of the pain and, if not outright, the loneliness it caused. Some rebelled against it, would rail and scream, act out, and do everything possible to pull away. Yet how do you truly fight your nature or something screaming at you in your soul? Drugs and alcohol could only provide so much solace. It was torturous. A rumor was that Mirko fought so hard because of her mate or something had happened, and her mate was taken away. When she spoke to the group about it, Sue was sure there was a tinge of sadness in the heroine's eyes, a look of longing and grief. Now Sue sat stunned, shocked. Her mother had said it, so she had found a mate. How could this have happened? She had met him years ago, so briefly. How? Was this why she would think about him so often over her life? The dreams? The daydreams? What was she going to do? What if he didn't feel anything for her? Was there nothing but pain in her future? Sue typically had rather tight control over her facial expressions. Most people had dismissed this as she was uncaring, which was not even close to the truth. She was extremely passionate, but due to her quirk, it wouldn't register to anyone outside. Her mother, on the other hand, knew this about her daughter and could see the crisis bubbling within her and the breakdown with it. She reached out and pulled her daughter in close. Sue began to bluster and have trouble catching her breath. Her mother just held and offered what reassurance she could. She had hoped that if her daughter had bonded, it would have been someone with a similar disposition. But there was no rhyme or reason for this. It was laterally one of those things that would happen. "Mother, what am I going to do?" Sue finally managed after several minutes. "There are few options, baby. We can pull you from UA and send you somewhere else, but now that you have seen him and bonded, you will ache for him. You can try and get to know him, and maybe he may feel a connection as well. It has happened in non-mutant quirks, though it is so rare that most dismiss it. Other than that, even killing him wouldn't necessarily take your feelings away. It just may plunge you into a depression you may never recover from." "Mom, I don't want him dead," she clutched her chest. The pain was almost unbearable at the thought. How am I supposed to act around him? I want to claim him, jump in his lap, and yell mine. I am so sorry that this happened when there is no clear-cut answer on how he feels, but your only real option is to talk to him and see. But there is some other normal-looking girl already on him. I don't know if they are together, but she finds him attractive. The worst part is she seems nice, but I just want to throw her out the window, and she has better." Sue finished grabbing at her chest. There will always be girls with bigger breasts or a tighter ass. It is about what he wants and likes in a girl, and you are no slouch in either department. Maybe he is a leg guy. "I do have some good legs," Sue said, smiling. "Then, if you want even to have a chance here, you need to talk to him, get to know him, see what happens, and maybe wear stockings to highlight your legs. Boys love stockings." Izuku. Inko immediately knew something good had happened today with as much composure as she could muster. She waited until they sat down to dinner to ask how his day was. Izuku burst out with that he had stood up to Bakugo and how good it felt, then that he had made a friend. Her name was Ochaco. Inko almost exploded at this point. A friend and a girl. Visions of grandbabies danced in her head. Then he said it. "Mom, I found her." Inko immediately knew what he was talking about. There was only one her, the girl from the river. Izuku had talked about her for most of his life, this mysterious frog girl who appeared one day only to disappear like a myth. This girl had inspired her son to one day be a hero, whereas Inko had failed. This girl inspired him to learn how to draw so he could never forget her face. His drawings had become so good that Izuku had been offered a scholarship to art school if he didn't get into UA. He didn't know because Inko had sent the application without his knowledge. It had even gotten to the point that Inko could tell when he dreamt of her by the expression on his face the following morning. And oh, how they had looked for her. Little Izuku wanted to go by the river every day for almost a year, hoping to find her again. If he saw anyone that may have been her, he would chase after them to get a clear look but always come back dejected. The mythical frog princess had been found in the kingdom of the UA and was in the same class. She was slightly disappointed when he told her he hadn't talked to her because he didn't want to come across as weird, but also because she was a girl. Inko was aware of how painfully shy her precious boy was, especially around members of the opposite sex. She remembered him fainting while trying to ask Mirko for an autograph. It was cute but painful. But now the mythical girl had appeared. Does she have a name? 𝗬𝗓𝐴, I saw it when they posted our scores from the Quirk assessment test. You didn't talk to her? I tried but didn't get a chance, he said. Izuku Midoriya, you will talk to this girl tomorrow, or you will eat nothing but plain rice and boiled chicken for a month. Yes, ma'am. Date? Both Tsu and Izuku woke up early, wondering why. Their emotions were vastly different as they walked through their morning routines and towards the train. Izuku was filled with nervous excitement. The urge to vomit and scream in excitement was equally strong as he made his way out of the apartment early and towards the train station. It didn't cross his mind how early he was going to arrive till he was standing at the station with almost no one else around. Looking at the time, he was close to 2.5 hours early. He didn't want to return to the house to avoid his mother's teasing. Tsu's dreams were the culprit, alternating between blissful fantasy and hellish nightmares, all centered around Izuku Midoriya. She felt a sense of dread and fear wash over her as she made her way out of the house, noticing immediately that it was still much darker than it should be. She looked at her phone and realized she was almost 3 hours early. Trying to go back to bed made her want to vomit. Instead, she just made her way to the train station, stopping to look at herself in a shop window. She sighed. Was she trying too hard? Her hair was in a pretty French braid, with light makeup, lip gloss, and white stockings to show off her legs. She let loose another sigh before making her way to the near-empty train station. Quietly, she boarded the train, unsure what to do about today. A quiet rib bit escaped her lips as the train doors closed and pulled away from the station. Izuku stepped onto the nearly empty train car and almost felt his soul leave his body. There she was, sitting by herself, looking like she wished to be almost anywhere from where she was. He saw her stiffen and immediately look up at him, panic gripping him as he wondered if he had been staring for a creepy amount of time, but closing the doors reassured him he had not. The train came to another station, and Tsu was lost in increasingly crazy scenarios running through her mind. When the doors opened to let on the latest group of passengers, she froze. She knew he was there. She could feel it. Her heart thumped against her chest, and she could feel the warmth. It caused her to stiffen up as she looked up and immediately found him and his beautiful green eyes looking over at her. They just stood there frozen for eternity. Well, about 10 seconds, but you understand. He didn't know what compelled him, but he walked over, his heart in his throat matching hers. As he got closer, he could hear this quiet flurry of rib bits escaping her. He noticed how pretty her legs looked in the stockings before he knew it. You're 𝗬𝗓𝐴, right? OMG, he is talking to me and he knows my name. How do you know my name, Ribbit? She asked in a whisper. Oh fuck, I fucked up. I saw it when Mr. Aizawa posted our scores from the assessment test. I wasn't trying to be creepy, I swear. He said, waving his hands in front of him defensively. You're Izuku Midoriya, she said, looking up at him through her eyelashes. It was super effective. As Izuku rebooted, he heard her ask if he wanted to sit down. Thankfully, his body was more capable than his mind as it sat beside her. So, do you think today will be like yesterday? He managed. Today is our first heroics class. I hope it goes well. Ribbit. She silently cursed as it escaped her lips. She had a habit of sometimes rib biting, but it happened more when she was nervous. You are on the train early today? So are you. I couldn't sleep. I was too anxious about today. Heroics class? No, I honestly forgot about that till you said something. Then what had you so excited? Ribbit. The thought of seeing you and of maybe talking to you. That excites me. I am so scared of blowing or making some critical mistakes that I cannot take back or recover from. Do you remember saving a boy by the lake? Just the opportunity to make new friends, he managed to get out. I had a rough time in school, and everything is so different. Why am I saying this? Yeah, the regular school can be rough, Ribbit. I want to make new friends as well. If you want, I will be your friend. Can he see how badly I am blushing? Who the hell says that? I am so dead. If he didn't think I was weird before, he would think I am plain psycho now. Really, he replied. I would like that. Tsu. My friends call me Tsu. She said in an almost whispered tone, not trusting her voice not to betray her. Tsu. He whispered back, painfully unaware of its effect on the girl. Her mind swooned. It was like she had won some prize, and all he said was her name. She whispered it with what she felt was a sense of awe or tenderness. Her heart was about to explode from her body. Then I can call you Izuku, right? Since we are friends now, she asked. He almost had to reboot again. Why? That should be fine, he managed, cursing himself for the stutter. He heard a contented ribbit escape her lips, making him melt even more. Neither trusted themselves to say anything more for the rest of the ride. When they arrived at their stop, she was beyond overjoyed when he asked if she wanted to walk to campus together. Nodding her approval, they walked along the still, quiet streets. A few professionals were beginning to emerge and start their commutes. They walked in silence till they passed a bakery that had the most heavenly aromas dancing out onto the streets. In a bold move, he turned to Tsu. In my haste this morning, I skipped breakfast. Would you like to get something from the cafe with me? My treat. I missed breakfast, but you don't have to buy it for me. Maybe you can buy it next time? Sweet baby All Might, what am I doing? Am I turning this into a date? And asking for a second date at the same time? What the hell is wrong with me? I can do that, she responded, her finger by her mouth as if pondering something and looking adorable. He was trying to burn the image into his mind. He wanted to draw it later desperately. But won't your girlfriend be upset? She said, attempting to fish out his relationship with Ochaco. Gee, he exclaimed, I don't have a girlfriend. You and Ochaco just seemed close, she said calmly, thankful she did not immediately pump her fist or burst into a happy dance. We met during the entrance exam. He replied, okay, that's good. I don't want to interfere if you had a girlfriend or anything. I promise no, never had one. Why did I just say that? Can I sound any more pathetic? Good, she said. Neither was sure why that was good, but it was out there now, and there was no taking it back. Quickly she commented about being hungry and stepped into the bakery. After they ordered, they sat silently, staring at their tea momentarily. Tsu summoned her courage and did her best not to think of this as some date. Do you normally take that train? Yes, just the later one, of course, do you? Yeah, it was so crowded yesterday. I wonder if it is like that every day. Probably with all the commuters, and I see a fair number of students, not just 𝗬𝗏 but for nearby schools. Pretty incredible, though, to be going to UA. I mean, it is almost a dream come true. I never thought I would make it. Why would you say something like that? Your quirk seems pretty unique. I was a late bloomer. I lived most of my life thinking I was quirkless until about a year before the test. Why would it take so long for your quirk? It's a stockpiling quirk. It stores energy, and my body wasn't ready to handle the power without hurting me. When I started training and working out, it suddenly came in. So, you lived your life thinking you were quirkless? I did. It wasn't easy. Society doesn't look down very well on the quirkless. I understand. Mutants get treated differently depending on how strange your mutation is. Kids used to tease me a lot because of how I looked. Do you have a problem with mutants? She asked, bracing for a negative response. Never. Why would I have a problem with something they have no control over? They have some pretty cool quirks, like yours. Mine. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I noticed how far you jumped during yesterday's test. I bet you can give someone a serious kick. If you don't mind me asking, does your quirk let you do everything a frog does, like stick to surfaces or turn invisible? She smiled as he complimented her quirk. She wanted to ask if he thought she was pretty, even though she looked like a frog but dared not to. I can't turn invisible but stick to walls, my tongue extends pretty far, and I can secrete an acidic mucus. Part of her instantly regretted that last part. Wow, which is so cool. I wonder if you will get other frog abilities as you age. Do you do okay in the cold? Her smile broadened as he praised her quirk again. Yeah, the cold and I are not friends. It makes me sleepy. My body wants to go into hibernation, and extreme heat can dry me out. Is your quirk like your parents? My parents both have a frog mutation as well. No, my dad has some fire breath, and my mom can attract small objects. Mine would be considered a mutation. You are not sure what your dad's quirk is? Not really, he said, staring more intently at his tea. He left us when they thought I was quirkless when I was about 5. They finally divorced when I was 10. I hadn't heard from him since he left. Her heart broke for having pressed or even brought up the issue. Something inside her told him he was still in pain. She chalked it up to her projecting her emotions on the subject. I am so sorry, Izuku. I didn't mean to bring up something so painful. It is okay, Tsu, you didn't know. It wasn't easy, but my mom made up for it. She is amazing. I bet she is. What about you? How is your family? My parents are lawyers who work hard, and I have younger siblings. Tell me about them. It was easy for Tsu to talk about her brother and sister. She adored them. She took care of them because her parents worked so much. At times she felt more like a mother than a sister. It was challenging to balance between the two. But her parents did their best as soon as their feet hit the door. They only discussed work or brought it home once the kids went to bed. They made sure to devote all they could to their children. It was something Tsu appreciated. She had been reluctant to go to 𝐒𝐻𝗧𝗏 due to the demanding schedule, but her parents insisted on her taking the test. They felt she had sacrificed enough already and shouldn't have to sacrifice her dream. Her mother was about to make a partner, and her father would take a lighter course load to be home more. As soon as they began conversing, they couldn't help but keep sharing about their lives and exchanging stories. They discovered that they shared an interest in particular movies and books, but their taste in music differed, mainly because Izuku wasn't profoundly knowledgeable about it. They both confessed to enjoying anime as a guilty pleasure, and she was taken aback to learn that he liked to draw. Although she wasn't entirely surprised to discover he was a hero otaku, he still blushed when she pointed it out. She wanted to delve deeper into their conversation and make it unforgettable. Time slipped by them before they both realized they had been talking for over an hour and a half. When they got up to leave, the hostess smiled and told them they were welcome back anytime. They walked to school with more of a spring in their step. Neither noticed it, but they were lighter on their feet and in their hearts. They had just passed the gates when Ochaco called out to them, followed by Ida. Tsu's hackles didn't rise as much when Ochaco fell into step on the other side of Izuku, but she still wasn't pleased. She must admit that the conversation with the other two was a nice thought. They both had their energy, and being around wasn't unpleasant. Toru and Kyoka caught up to them, falling into step with Tsu. They were their little mob as they made their way to class. Toru was lively, seeming to be enjoying her best life, and she was funny. The group was laughing, which was made worse when they had to try and explain the joke to Ida, who didn't get the punchline due to the slightly blue nature of the mark. When it did finally register, his outrage only added to the laughter. He attempted to sputter something about decorum in the halls of the UA as they entered the classroom. Their raucous arrival put more attention on them. Thankfully, they were able to defuse Ida by heading to their seats. Izuku took his seat before the Bakugo. Don't get used to it, Deku. Soon, they will all see you for what you are. I will find out how you cheated to get in, and you will be out of here in a heartbeat. Izuku turned around and stared at his one-time friend. You know, for someone that doesn't like me, you seem to spend much time thinking about me. How about you shut your mouth before everyone realizes what you are? And what am I, DKU? An insecure bully who was so afraid that a quirkless kid was better than him, he had to bully and abuse him every day just to try and soothe his overinflated sense of self-worth. You better hope we don't meet in combat training? You better hope we don't. When we do, I will show you I belong, and you won't be able to deny it. Then what is going to happen to you and your ego? If the quirkless kid was a threat, what would happen when he shows you how far he has come? Oh, we are going to find out. I am sure we will, Bakugo. And I hate to say it. I can hardly wait. The argument between them had attracted some attention, particularly Kyoka, who overheard everything, and Tsu, who sensed the anger emanating from Izuku and felt the urge to kick Bakugo in the head as hard as possible. Ijiro, and Mizo appeared to be preparing to intervene if the situation turned violent, but visibly relaxed when the two individuals shifted their focus away from each other. Fortunately, Mr. Aizawa arrived and brought order to the room, ending the uncomfortable silence. Although the students were optimistic about the morning sessions at Hero School, they were underwhelming. Despite having heroes as teachers, regular school subjects like Shakespeare and math remained dull. However, there was one exception. A pro-hero from America named the Black Knight delivered an exceptional history lesson. He was enthusiastic and captivating, and the students were disappointed when the class ended with the lunch bell. Izuku's dream became a reality during lunch as he sat at a table full of familiar faces from earlier in the day. He was in disbelief that he was eating with them and had to double-check that it wasn't just a dream. The group discussed their morning lessons and then moved on to the upcoming heroic class in the afternoon. This was a significant moment for Izuku, who had been eating alone for quite some time. After lunch, the class's anticipation reached a boiling point. I am coming through the door like a normal person. The class held tight. Excitement exploded as comments about how he wore his Silver Age costume and how it was simply amazing that the #1 hero would be teaching them personally. Izuku did his best to feign excitement with his class. Thankfully, there wasn't any attention on him as everyone was rightfully focused on the #1 hero. Before we begin, they say that the clothes make the person, so we can't begin until you change into these. With a push of a button, cubbies opened in the wall revealing metal cases, all with numbers on them 1 to 20. Now, children, get changed into your hero costumes and meet me in Battleground Delta for your first heroics class combat training. An almost feral grin grew on Bakugo's face, and he walked over, grabbed his case, and headed out the door, with the rest of the class following suit. Izuku did the same with an almost giddy sense of excitement as he retrieved his case. His initial dream uniform had been modified after he accepted one for all to not be so blatant in its homage to the #1 here. Izuku took a little longer than the others to change as he sat on the bench momentarily, staring down at the dark green suit with black accents. He emerged onto the battleground, taking in all his teammates and their costumes. He immediately found Tsu first and was ever thankful for the respirator, as it helped hide his blush, and admired her in her tight suit. Before he could say anything, he almost went offline, catching a glimpse of Momo's costume, and when Ochaco came over with a tight suit that hugged her curves. Holy cows, you look pretty cool. I should have been clearer with my application. I wanted something puffier and space-themed instead, she said as she blushed, her head down and arms behind her back. Tsu felt that urge to kick someone again. I think it looks great, Ochaco. Really cool, Izuku managed without a stutter. He noticed he was immensely proud of himself for that particular feat. Thanks, Izuku, she responded, admiring Izuku in the dark green suit. Very similar to Canon, but a darker green with black accents, and instead of the bunny ear cowl, it is more of a hood. Titanium weave, light body armor, heavier boots, like his vigilante arc. They walked over toward their friends as everyone complimented each other on their costumes. Tsuka looked at Tsu. Aye. Your costume looks nice, Tsu. I like your goggles. He wanted to smack himself for that one. I like your goggles. What the fuck, man? Thanks, Izuku, she said a little bashfully. I think you look great too. As they walked towards All Might, Kyoko whispered to Tsu, when did you two get on a first-name basis? Oh, we both ended up on an early bus and we talked for a while, Tsu said, doing her best to sound nonchalant about it, which was easy for her to do. But unfortunately, her friend could hear Tsu's heart racing, deciding not to call her friend out on it right now. That's cool. Now, students, we are going to have you all draw lots, breaking you up into pairs. For this exercise, one team will be the heroes, and the other will be asked to play villains. The villains have secured a bomb and will be hiding in the designated building, where the heroes will have 10 minutes to locate the bomb and foil the villains. Victory can be achieved by either incapacitating the other team. Heroes will have an option of securing a villain with capture tape, or by touching the bomb before the time limit. Excessive violence will not be tolerated. Remember, this is training as excessive damage to the building. Remember, this is training, not actual combat. Now, any questions? Why are we drawing lots to determine teams? Ida asked. Izuku raised his hand, young Midoriya. Because once we become pros, we will not have the luxury of choosing who we team up with on the field, and we'll have to learn to work with heroes we may have no prior experience with. Well put. Any other questions? All Might looked around, seeing none. Now step up and choose your lot. Tsu was sad that she didn't get paired with Izuku, annoyed that, of course, Ochaco did, and almost felt a hot rage when it was announced that Izuku and Ochaco would be going against Bakugo and Ida. Walking with the others towards the observation room, she silently wished him luck, knowing that was all she could do. Bakugo glared at Izuku. Put up or shut up time, Deku. Don't go crying to mommy after I beat your asses and expose you for what you are. Izuku smiled at his one-time tormentor, his bully. Bakugo, you have had this coming for a long fucking time. I can't wait. Ida and Ochaco exchanged worried looks as they walked with their teammates toward their starting areas. This seems personal, Izuku? Ochaco asked. It is my quirk that came in super late, so for the longest time, everyone thought I was quirkless. That is why he calls you Deku? Izuku nodded. What an asshat. This is your chance to stand up to him and show him you belong. A fated battle, so to speak. Essentially. Do you have a plan? I do. This is what I think we should do. Bakugo will come right for me. He will ignore anything Ida has planned and likely will not even listen to him. Ida will likely stay behind with the bomb, giving us a 2-on-1 advantage with Bakugo. I think you should keep your distance and use ranged attacks like furniture or rubble, and will I keep it up close and personal? Take him down and capture him, then we move to Ida. Izuku said. Or you take him one-on-one, Ochaco said. What? Izuku was surprised. It was what he wanted, but he was putting that aside. Listen, I don't know the whole story between you two, but there is something there for him to call you Deku and after that confrontation in class this morning. Do you want to fight him 2v1, or do you want to show him that you belong? I want to fight him and show him how far I have come, that I am not just some Deku. Then you fight him and leave Ida to me, Ochaco said, pumping her fist. Why would you do that? He asked with genuine curiosity. Because we are friends, and I can tell you need this. This would be our first training class if this were real life. We might get in trouble, but they won't throw the book at us, especially if we win. I don't know what to say. Izuku replied. Don't say anything. Just kick his ass, Ochaco said with a wide grin. You got it. Observation room. The class couldn't hear what was being said during the planning stage. The mics kicked in as soon as the match started. Still, from what they could see, Bakugo and Ida were not on the same page at all. With the speedster eventually just walking away and clearing the room, they had the bomb in of any obstacles in his own, as the feral grin and Bakugo had gotten even more manic. Ochaco and Izuku, on the other hand, seemed to have come to some plan and looked pumped for whatever they had planned. Tsu noticed how they looked at each other, which bothered her. She saw she could feel his excitement and nervousness. What bothered her more was when they were talking, she felt something from him, an emotion she couldn't place, and it was directed at Ochaco. It made her want to cry or run and attack the girl. Though the feelings played subtly on her face to the extent that no one in the class could tell the turmoil she was suffering, her heartbeat, on the other hand, betrayed her, and Kyoka could hear it loud and clear. She leaned over to her friend, Tsu. What is happening? Your heart rate is everywhere. Are you okay? Yes, she lied. I can tell when people are lying, Tsu. Even you. She said sympathetically. I understand if you just don't want to talk about it, but you don't have to lie. When you are ready or talk, I am here for you, okay? Tsu wanted to yell but knew that was her misplacing her emotions. I'm sorry, Kyoka, but I can't talk about it here. Maybe after school or something. Thank you. No problem, Tsu, whenever you are ready. Whether after school today or some other day. No, you can talk to me. Tsu felt better knowing that Kyoka wasn't upset with her, and she began to debate about telling her friend what was going on, as there was a measure of embarrassment that went along with it. A fated battle. When the buzzer sounded, Bakugo raced off, determined to end Deku once and for all. The bastard had somehow cheated into UA and was walking the halls deceiving the rest of the damn extras. He was going to expose and destroy this damn pebble for the last time. He was supposed to be the only one to come from 𝗲𝗲𝗏. He was going to be the future #1. He would not have his story tarnished by this goddamn Deku any longer. Izuku and Ochaco ran in. 2 stairwells presented themselves. Ochaco took a position in the center of the room as Izuku made his way up the right side, ensuring his boots made some noise to lure Bakugo in. Sure enough, as he neared the corner, something screamed at him in his head, and he jumped back just in time to avoid a sneak attack. Ochaco, hearing this, bolted up the left side, negating gravity on herself so she could quickly leap up the stairs. Sneak attack Kachin, Izuku said mockingly, hoping to drive Bakugo further past the point of rational thought. You're so scared of me that you had to try and take me out with a sneak attack. You don't even have the balls to take me head on. What the fuck did you say to me, do you? Are you calling me a coward? If the shoe fits, I will fucking end you right here in front of everyone. You fucking pile of A. Bakugo screamed as the foam began to fall from his mouth. Izuku knew that he had added even more gasoline to the raging inferno, but he was not about to back down. This was his moment to show Bakugo that he wasn't just a damn Deku and would not be anyone or anything's pebble. Bakugo leaped forward with an explosive right hook like so many times in their lives. But like any other time, Izuku was suddenly surrounded by green lightning. He surged past his norm of 8% to 15%. His body didn't creak or protest. Instead, it reveled in the power. Stepping forward past the hook, he delivered a devastating uppercut that halted Bakugo's momentum and sent him up, but not for long. Izuku felt it was in slow motion seeing Bakugo rising into the air after the uppercut. He grabbed his legs, spinning and slamming Bakugo into the ground, driving the air out of his opponent. He knew the fight wasn't over. Still holding Bakugo's legs, he pivoted and spun, throwing him across the room and causing the wall to spiderweb. Before Bakugo could react, Izuku dived after him with a knee strike that found its home, breaking the boy's nose. Bakugo responded to the pain by throwing his palms forward and letting off a massive blast that rocketed Izuku away and through the opposing wall. Bakugo's mind raced at everything that had just happened. He stared at the hole across for him. The feeling of victory began to fill him until it faded just quickly when the dust settled, and he saw the green lightning emanating from the darkness. Is that the best you got, Kachin? Izuku's voice rang out. He stepped out. His costume was smoldering some, but his reinforcement in the chest had held. He looked almost like a monster emerging. Observation room. Dude, he looks manly as fuck, Ijiro said. Kero, was all Tsu could say as a fire ignited in her at that moment that could only be described as a passion. Later alone, she would blush at the thoughts that ran through her head. Battleground. Bakugo roared and rushed Izuku, bringing up his gauntlet as his other hand pulled a pin from it. Don't do it, young Bakugo. You will kill him, All Might yelled over the intercom. Not if the son of a bitch dodges, did he? Bakugo replied. Izuku quickly processed that the gauntlet must store Bakugo's explosive sweat and that he was about to unleash a massive and potentially life-threatening blast upon him. Deftly, he moved and ducked under Bakugo's area and forced the explosion upward. The building shook violently. Izuku, are you okay? Ochaco yelled over the earpiece. Yes, he replied as he drove his knee into Bakugo's gut as hard as he could, doubling over his rival. He then grabbed his head and repeatedly introduced his knee to Bakugo's face till the explosive teen fell to the ground, a bloody, unconscious mess. He wrapped the capture tape around his fallen foe's wrists. Bakugo has been eliminated. The call rang out. Ida recovered from the building being shaken and decided was surprised when the door flew open, and Ochaco came barreling in like a missile, spearing him in the gut. Her 5-point contact was successful. She rolled and flipped the speedster into the air, hoping to immobilize him, but to her dismay, Ida used his thrusters to fly around the room, forcing Ochaco to go on the defense. As Ida was closing in, Izuku ran in. Release him, Ochaco, and run for the bomb. Ochaco immediately pressed her fingers together, deactivating her quirk, fighting back the urge to vomit. Izuku grabbed Ida, distracting him and allowing Ochaco to secure the victory. The two boys rolled off each other and took a deep breath. Good match, Izuku said, catching his breath. "Same to you, my friend," the speedster replied. The trio exited the building together as the medical bots took Bakugo away. Ida looked at Izuku. "He seemed to have a personal vendetta against you." "The feeling was mutual," Izuku said. "We have a sordid history." When the group entered the observation room, they were greeted with cheers as the other classmates swarmed them to congratulate them on a good match. 𝗬 repressed the urge to scandalize the room. Instead, she held back, waiting to check on him. It was one of the hardest things she ever had to do. She just wanted to fuss over him. When All Might called for MVP voting, it was decided that Ochaco deserved the honors. Momo had started chastising Izuku for engaging Bakugo one-on-one, but Ochaco told her he wanted to go 2v1. Still, she decided to split the group as she felt it would work out better in the end, that they just weren't prepared for Ida being able to use his thrusters with no gravity. Momo offered her apologies to Izuku, who was able to stutter out, "It is okay, Ida." The intensity of the first battle seemed to pump up the rest as the next group took the stage. 𝗬 managed to get near Izuku. "Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you?" Izuku smiled at her. "I am good. My chest plate took most of the damage." "Good. I wouldn't want you to get hurt," she said in a whisper. "You be careful out there too," he replied. They looked away, hiding their blushes. Kyoka heard the exchange and watched them turn from each other, and things began to click into place. Kyoka and 𝗬's attention was taken when Shoto froze the building, almost freezing Toru. The poor girl's costumes consisted of only boots and gloves. All Might immediately made a call to David Shield about fixing that problem quickly. 𝗬's turn. When 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and 𝗬 took the field, they discussed their strategy as they prepared to go against Kirishima and Hanta. 𝗬 proposed using their mobility to avoid Kirishima and focus their attack on 𝗬, hoping to use their advantage to find the bomb. The buzzer sounded as the groups began to move. "That is a perfect plan, 𝗬," Fumi said as Dark Shadow popped out and nodded his approval. "It very adaptively plays to our advantages. After the trial, I would like to discuss our quirks more. Maybe we can get a drink at the cafe near the school. If we have time." That was all she said, not noticing that Fumi seemed a little sad by her response. Dark Shadow patted Fumi's shoulder in sympathy. "The villains not ones to be passive meet them to attempt to hold the heroes at bay." To impress, Fumi shouted, "Best you make a run for it, Dark Shadow, and I will hold them here." 𝗬 nodded, dodged past Kirishima, and narrowly avoided an attack by Hanta. The tap user turned to pursue. "Now, Dark Shadow, hold them off so the fair maiden may secure us victory." Dark Shadow roared forth, cutting off Hanta and sending him crashing back into Kirishima. The hardening quirk user brushed off the collision and turned to rush Fumi head-on. "Should have kept your shadow closer, 𝗬. Fumi attempted to pull Dark Shadow back, but they vastly underestimated Kirishima's speed, and he tackled Fumi to the ground. 𝗬 bound off after 𝗬, and a game of cat and mouse erupted between the two as 𝗬 used her superior agility to keep an advantage over her pursuer. She froze when she busted into the room with the box. The entire room was covered in tape. She felt a sense of worry overtake her body and instinctively leaped up and backward, dodging 𝗬's attack. Quick! She pushed off the wall, driving her feet into the pursuer's back. As 𝗬 bounced, an idea sprung to her mind. With a burst, she delivered a drop kick, sending 𝗬 crashing into the tape maze surrounding the bomb. Dark Shadow managed to push Kirishima back, allowing Fumi to get to his feet, wiping blood from his lip. "We shall not be defeated here, a foul villain. I shall taste victory," he called out. "Not today, buddy," Ijiro shouted as he dived at Fumi once more. "Hero team wins," rang out. But unfortunately, Ijiro was already airborne and crashed into his opponents, sending them crashing to the floor. As the teams walked back, 𝗬 was helping 𝗬 walk as his back was in terrible pain from the kick. Ijiro took over once they came into view. Fumi was silent, feeling he did not perform as he hoped. The observation room. "OMG, did anyone else hear the fair maiden comment?" Mina said. "I wonder if 𝗬 likes him?" Izuku winced and felt his fist clench involuntarily. He chastised himself. It wasn't like he had told her how much she meant to him, how he looked for her for years, or how his world was brighter if she dared to grace his dreams. He sighed. God, she would think he was some pervert. She didn't owe him something if 𝗬𝗏 liked Fumi. As long as he treated her right, he would support them. Before they entered the room, 𝗬 asked Fumi to stay back. 𝗵𝗃𝗲, I thank you for finding me to be a fair maiden, but I must tell you that someone has already caught my eye. While I cannot be involved with you in the way you may desire, if it were not too much, I would still like to be your friend. I understand, my lady. I thank you for your honesty. He responded. I wonder what they are talking about, Toru said. Maybe she is telling him that she wants to get to the cafe. The excitement was evident in Toru's voice. No, she is telling him the opposite, Kyoka said as she stood beside Izuku. She heard his heartbeat increase at the news, and a sly smile crossed her face. I was hoping for some romance, Mina pouted. Mina, it is only the second day of class, Momo said, chastising the girl. Whatever. I could have been love at first sight or something romantic like that. While the concept is romantic, I don't believe it works that way. It is more lust at first sight. At least according to Mother. Momo said. She said that someone else had caught her attention. I wonder who that could be, Kyoka whispered to Izuku as she walked away. When the heroes entered, 𝗬 was named MVP. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 looked a little crestfallen as the bout was discussed, and each team gave their reasoning for their plans. While the discussion was going on, Izuku approached 𝗬 and leaned in. I was right. You do have a hell of a kick. Thank you, Izuku, she responded quietly. Kyoka could hear her heart beating from across the room. Aftermath. As the groups went to their locker rooms to change, everyone was talking about their matches, and they noticed that Bakugo's locker was empty. Glory be to our glorious upperclassmen, Mineta called out, getting everyone's attention. You Mineta, what's up? Denki asked. There is a peephole over here. Fate has given us this opportunity to bathe our souls in the glory of seeing the luscious bodies of our classmates. That is not a very hero thing to do, Mineta. You should simply ignore it, Ida said. Dude, are you gay? Was the purple boy's response. Zero, Denki, you guys in? I mean, if it's there, Zero said. Denki nodded. That is so unmanly, Ijiro said. Mineta started rambling about the girls in a very objectifying manner and adding vulgar sexual comments. Izuku was shocked that no one was moving to do anything. Hearing the boy's words about 𝗬 snapped him out of his surprise. Quickly he activated One for All and leaped across the room, snatching Mineta away and tossing him across the room. Dude, what the fuck? He yelled as he crashed. What the hell is wrong with you, Mineta? He yelled. In fact, what the hell is wrong with all of you? None of you would stop him, Denki and Zero. You would perv out with him. Kyoka. We heard everything, Izuku. I was ready to stab his eye out before you jumped in. Momo is patching the side. He heard the girl call back. Try that shit again, Mineta, and I will throw you through the lockers. He shook his head at Denki and Zero as he finished getting changed. You are right, Izuku. I should have done more than just chastise him, Ida said. I will report this to Aizawa, he said as he exited. Girls sighed. Izuku is so awesome, Ochaco said as she dropped her towel to get dressed after the drama had passed. He is decent, Momo added, zipping her skirt. He did more than just use his words. He stepped up. I was so about to stab that little pervert, Kyoka said. It sucks that Denki and Zero would go along with it. Fucking perverts. I wonder if Izuku has a girlfriend, Mina mused. He is a little plain but a stand-up dude. I don't think he is plain, Ochaco said as a chorus of us erupted. 𝗬 bristled up. I don't mean it like that. He is a nice guy and his freckles are cute. Ochaco tried to defend herself, but she wasn't doing herself any favors. Come on, someone back me up. His freckles are kind of cute, Toru chimed in. And hey, he's pretty buff, and I couldn't be the only one that thought he looked kind of hot when he came out of that hole in the wall, all green lightning. That was sick, Mina said. The girls then started talking about different things that happened during the tests. How Shoto froze the whole building made Toru shudder to remember the cold, which drew a laugh. Let us not dilly-dally, ladies. We still need to report back to class, Momo called as she walked to the door. Please let the professor know I will be there shortly. I am going to report the incident to Professor Midnight. As they returned to class, Kyoka caught up with 𝗬. Hey, 𝗬, did you want to hit the cafe after class today? 𝗬 contemplated lying, but instead, she just nodded. Toru said something about the cafe. Soon it turned into all the girls wanting to go together. Even Momo wanted in once she heard after returning to class. Truthfully, she seemed more excited than everyone else. 𝗬 was slightly thankful for it turning into a group outing. It meant she could avoid talking about Izuku with Kyoka. Izuku walked past the group on his way to catch up with Ida. "See everyone tomorrow," he said as he walked past. He stopped and smiled when all the girls responded with a similar goodbye. She could feel how light his heart felt at not being shunned, but instead being accepted. It made her step lighten as well as she realized that here, she was not only in UA, that she was going to a cafe with all her female classmates, and that she was able to see her mate again tomorrow. Sharyar. Yeah, it was a bit cringy after I reread it, so I changed it. It was more an intent for him to express an interest in 𝗬. I wasn't attempting to make them horny over him for nothing. Ochaco does have a thing for him, and Toru was just Toru and making a comment and a compliment. I wasn't trying to imply she wanted to jump his bones or anything. They then mentioned that something he did looked cool, so a little confused about that part. The peephole thing, I honestly forgot that it happened later in canon, but this is fanfic, so shrugs my bad. The thing about the peephole is that the boys still need to do something. They just said no, don't. And that bothered me. Especially the whole about to commit a crime and shit. And how is it bashing for him to do what he had done in canon but for someone to do more than say, no bad. Stop. Either way, I hope it doesn't put you off the story. Drunken Sarge. Don't stop. I read your comments, and I have no problem with you pointing out stuff. That goes for anyone. It doesn't offend me or make me upset. And I have a problem when I get excited about writing something. I trip over myself some, so pointing out the continuity error was helpful and allowed me to correct it. Ryujin96. I could just hit you back with a PM, but I wanted to thank you for all your reviews across my stories, and I appreciate your comments. Now the business has been handled on to the story. The cafe visit was not as lovely as the visit with Izuku that morning, but friendly, in a different way. Being a mutant with a very noticeable quirk that, while still giving her a human form, had enough difference to put people off. Factor in how 𝗬 possessed one hell of a poker face. The perceived disconnect of emotions was a problem. Factor in with a tendency to speak her mind when asked. 𝗬 was like any other girl her age. She was passionate about different shows or artists, enjoyed various things, and dreamed the same dreams. When 𝗬 got interested in anything or something caught her attention, she was, in fact, very passionate about the subject. It also took a while to learn to deal with the insults. They would cut her deep, and it took a long time to learn how to let them heal and let it go. She still didn't like Nishihoruma for making fun of her favorite dress in the 2 CND grade. 1 or 2 friends were all she could count on during her previous school life. Others did try, but when she couldn't go out or always had to take care of her siblings, eventually people stopped asking. So, saying she was somewhat pleasant sitting here with all her other female classmates would be an understatement. She didn't stick out like a sour thumb. The cafe, being so close to UA, was used to dealing with students with varied and different quirks. Even in this group, there was Mina, pink skin, horns with yellow irises, and black sclerae eyes. Toru was invisible, and Kyoka had a slight mutation with her earphone jacks. Then there was Ochaco, whose mutation was confined to her hands, but overall, she looked very typical. Then there was Momo. If someone said her quirk was a beauty, then 𝗬 would have agreed. It was almost a perfect balance, and 𝗬 appreciated it. The opportunity for friends was one of Tsu's driving goals in life. Kyoka and Toru were already on that path due to their encounter during the entrance exam and shared experience. Mina was a bundle of energy, an outward counter opposite Tsu's demeanor. Momo was very polite and excited about experiencing what would have been considered everyday things. The girl had confessed on the short walk that she was homeschooled her entire life, and that even something as simple as a trip to the cafe was something to be looked forward to. Then there was Ochaco. 𝗬 couldn't find fault with the girl in any reasonable manner. She was friendly, polite, bubbly, and upbeat. 𝗬 knew and understood it was because of Izuku's blooming closeness to the girl. She had ascertained from her conversation that Izuku was a bit socially awkward, but 𝗬 saw Ochaco as a rival for her mate. 𝗬 even felt horrible for that thought. She knew it was biological, that her body was reacting and influencing her mental responses, but she couldn't stop it. She had to consider if she wanted to. So far, he had proven to be what she had hoped, a kind and sincere boy who stood up for what was right. It could all be rose-tinted glasses because she saw him yesterday. realized what she was feeling, and only had a meaningful conversation with him this morning. Usually, this would be considered a hardcore crush, but a crush nonetheless. But with her biological reaction, it was bordering on an obsession. She hated it but loved it. Being her was steadily becoming more complicated by the day. A gentle poke from Kyoka and whispered concern brought Sue back into the present, as the conversation had become about the first battle trial and how school was overall. After the light meal, phone numbers were exchanged as Mina insisted on a group chat, and the group split off to head home. Toru, Ochaco, and Mina walked away as Momo entered a waiting car. Sue was surprised when Kyoka fell into step with her. "Is everything okay, Kyoka?" "Ribbit," she asked. "Yeah, everything is cool. I will head to the music store for a bit. My parents will meet me there. So I decided I would walk with you." "That sounds nice. Are you enjoying school?" "It's hardcore for the first 2 days. Quirk assessment, heroic class. But this is what we signed up for. Mr. Aizawa seems to have a sink or swim mentality. But I wanted to ask about you." "Your thoughts about the school, I agree. But I am okay. Just adjusting to things. I won't press you. I just want you to remember that if you need to talk, you have my number," Kyoka said, smiling at her friend. "Thanks, Kyoka. I appreciate it." Izuku. When his foot hit the door, he couldn't get to his room fast enough to start drawing his image of Tsu from this morning. He barely registered his mother coming home until she said, "So is it 𝗬𝗧𝗏 or boiled chicken?" "𝗬𝗧𝗏, Mom. Not only did I talk to her, I even sat in a cafe with her for over an hour. And we honestly talked to Mom. She had 2 younger siblings, and her parents worked. It was so amazing that I could almost die. It was so amazing." "That is so amazing, but how did you talk to her for over an hour?" Izuku blushed. "I may have gotten on the train a few hours early." Izuku. "But she was on it also. We take the same train, but it's so crowded and she gets on before me, so I never saw her. But this morning, bam, there she was. So it was kind of like a date but not a date. I offered to pay, and she said I didn't have to, but I then said that she could pay next time, which sounded fair. So is that like a second date? Was the first part even a date? Can you have a date early in the morning? And then we had battle training, and I beat Bakugo's ass, and I was paired with my friend Ochaco I told you about yesterday, and we won, but we had to beat my other friend Ida. Then Sue and Fumi had to work together against Kirishima and Zero, and she was amazing. Her hero costume looked so cool. They won, and then some kid named Mineta tried to peep, and I got mad and grabbed him and stopped him, and then I came home and started drawing." He then proceeded to take a deep breath. Inko smiled at her son's ramble. "Well, I am glad it worked out. Finish your drawing while I go get dinner started, and don't forget your homework." "Okay, I promise." He immediately went back to drawing. Inko stood in the doorway, staring at Izuku. He wasn't the withdrawn child or even the lonely one. He was so happy. Making friends, finally meeting the girl from the river, and on his way to becoming a hero. His encounter with All Might changed his world and allowed Inko to begin making amends for all those years ago. The rift between them is gone, and they are back to being good with each other. He ate his food joyfully as he recounted in more detail how his fight with Bakugo had transpired. Inko was unhappy about the trash talking but knew that if there was hope of the 2 boys getting along, this had to be worked out. She was more concerned that Izuku was safe, and the fact that he had emerged from this first hero fight without noticeable injuries was more than enough for her. He did the dishes before disappearing to do his homework. She eventually found her way to the computer and logged into her online course. Her son wasn't the only one improving. Izuku, like a goober, woke early and took the same bus, hoping for lightning to strike twice. Sadly, it didn't. When he returned to the cafe, he ordered food and drink before going to school. He had to sit outside for the gates to open before he made his way to class. Of course, it was empty, so he opened the hero book he had for his class and began jotting down all the notes he could from the day before. He was nibbling on a croissant when the door opened, and looking up, he saw Kyoka enter, looking annoyed. "Hey, are you okay, Jiro?" he managed. The purple-haired girl looked over at him, still wearing a look of annoyance, but as Izuku had vast experience with those looks, he could tell that it wasn't directed at him. "The stupid neighbor's dog started barking at 4 a.m. and wouldn't shut up," she said, throwing her arms up. "You know how hard it is to sleep with that dumb dog barking, and I forgot to charge my headphones, so I couldn't sleep now." I am here but early. Sorry you had to endure that, he said shyly as he held the bakery bag towards her. Croissant, he asked timidly. Kyoko looked at the Izuku, and it looked and sounded like he was offering food to a rampaging hungry beast that was about to eat him. She was about to decline when her stomach growled, causing her to flush a bright red before she managed to whisper out, "Maybe one." She walked over, taking the empty seat in front of him. "So what, you working on broccoli?" "Broccoli," he said in confusion. "You know how your curly hair is just everywhere? It looks like a broccoli top. Whatever, roll with it. What are you doing?" Izuku froze. He didn't know what to say. Quickly glancing down, he prayed for a natural disaster. Unfortunately, his prayer was unanswered. Kyoko took his hesitation to look at the book and saw her name and a nice hand-drawn headshot. "Is that me?" Kyoko asked. "Dude, what are you writing about?" Suspecting the worst. It's a notebook. About the class and their Q quirks." He stammered out. "Let me see," she demanded. Izuku handed the notebook over, contemplating if he could still enroll in a hero school in Antarctica. Kyoko looked at the notebook and was surprised. The drawing was nice but a little flattering, in her opinion, but the notebook was about her quirk. The next page had her in her hero costume, a rough but outstanding job. It also had notes about support items, a vibro sword or a guitar that doubled as a melee weapon, questions about how she used her quirk, or about applications she had never considered. She was using her jacks like separate appendages while grappling. She could use them to jab someone in the eyes or ears. She knew that, but the thought of working out with them to make them stronger, she wondered if such a thing was possible. It suggested that she could train with Ojiro as he had a tail and seemed to integrate it into his fighting style. Questions about amplification capabilities, a sonic scream, thoughts that if it was possible, then theories of flight, hero names Banshee, Decibel, Angel Beat, and others. "You made this after the battle test yesterday?" she asked, the anger gone from her voice. Izuku looked up, fiddling with his hands. "Yeah, I love quirks, dissecting them and analyzing them. I swear it wasn't trying to creep on you or anything. I think your quirk is cool." "You do?" she asked. "Tell me about these support gears you thought of." Izuku immediately explained his theories about how she could use them and what it would allow her to do. When Kyoko pointed to something else, he continued, and she noticed how he lit up and seemed more confident. "I am sorry if it bothers you. I wasn't trying to do something bad, I swear." "It's okay, broccoli top. I first thought it was something lewd from your reaction, but I know you aren't like that, especially after yesterday. Some of this stuff is pretty cool. Would you mind if I got a copy of some of the support gear? They sound interesting." Kyoko quickly flipped through the notebook to confirm what he had told her, and sure enough, all the students had their section. Only a few had drawings, but then she saw Tsu's entry. Kyoko decided then and there that she wanted to find someone that looked at her the way that Izuku looked at Tsu. There was more than one drawing, and they were exquisite. If anyone saw this, it would be apparent that Izuku had at minimum a crush on Tsu. She made sure not to linger on the page, quickly turning it to make it seem she had not noticed. Izuku seemed relieved that she hadn't seen or was not saying anything. "Dude, you got some talent for breaking down quirks if you managed to do that in one day," Kyoko said as she closed the book. Before she returned it, she saw it was labeled Quirk Analysis Number 15 UA Class 1A. "Are there 14 other volumes?" "Yeah," he said as his sweat dropped. "You are a hero otaku, aren't you?" Izuku looked at her like she just kicked a puppy. "Kayaka, that is so much worse." "It's okay, Izuku. I have tons of notebooks at home with music and stuff," Kyoko said nonchalantly before instantly bringing up her jacks and aiming them at his eyes. "If you tell anyone, I won't say a word," he said, waving his hands in the air in front of himself defensively. "Hey, did you understand the two-word problems on last night's math homework?" "Yeah, did you need some help?" "If you wouldn't mind," she replied. They shifted to the math homework, and by the time he explained, she understood enough to figure out the second one independently. Absently stealing another croissant. "Hey, I never asked, or you never told me what are you doing here so early?" "I just hoped and prayed that Tsu would retake the early train so I could take her to the cafe again," he thought. "I had a hard time sleeping, still amped up from yesterday's battle trail." "Yeah, you and Bakugo were going at it." It was hard to hear everything because of his quirk, but that seemed personal. "Yeah, sorry about that." We have history, Izuku replied as he rubbed the back of his head. They talked a little more before Ida walked in and was surprised that they had beaten them. But when he noticed they were going over last night's lessons, he seemed to approve. Kyoka and Izuku shrugged, going back to discussing the battle trial. As more students slowly arrived, Kyoka gave him a polite wave and returned to her seat. The students were all talking about the swarm of reporters at the front gate asking about All Might. When Bakugo walked in, he was staring daggers at Izuku, and he walked by and took his seat. What the hell is that quirk to you? Have you been hiding it from me? Mocking me behind my back so that you could get a good laugh? Are you out of your fucking mind? Izuku said in complete shock. What? Let me say it a little slower. Your fucking mind. Izuku said slowly and deliberately. That is honestly the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Do you seriously think I kept this under wraps to go home and laugh behind your back? If I had this in school, I would have done it during a pep rally and laughed in your goddamn face. You egotistical prick. You might want to pay attention in science class. You may learn the world doesn't revolve around you. You want to go right now? I will. Put you down right here right now. Bakugo shouted as he bolted out of his seat. The entire class was already listening to their exchange, but now some of the boys started moving to intercept. This isn't 𝐴LDRA, Bakugo. No one is going to cover for you, and no one here is going to stroke your ego. Either grow up or get the fuck on, Izuku said, rising out of his seat. Ochaco and 𝐬𝗪 got up to intervene as 𝗲𝗏 stepped in between the two boys. Hey guys, calm down, he said, raising his arms in between the two. That is enough. The boys turned and saw Aizawa enter. The other students breathed a sigh of relief. Katsuki Bakugo, grow up and quit acting like a child. Izuku Midoriya, choose your words better, or don't say anything. Mr. Bakugo, you lost yesterday, and judging not only by your actions but by my reviewing of the audio, that hasn't happened a lot and never to Mr. Midoriya. Either learn and grow from it or get out of my class. Mr. Midoriya Heroic's class is not a place to settle grudges. Don't let it happen again. Now everyone sit down. Kirishima, you and Midoriya switch seats. This is permanent. 𝐬𝗪's poker face faltered as she realized that it meant that Izuku was going to be sitting next to her from now on. Her heart began to thump rapidly. She even let loose some quiet ribbits before she was able to clamp down on that part. Kyoka looked over her shoulder towards her friend and smirked before facing the front. Izuku noticed immediately as the words left Mr. Aizawa's mouth about who his new seatmate would be. He was also closer to Ida and Ochaco, who sat right behind 𝐬𝗪. He was inwardly happy to be closer to the two students he was becoming friends with, but he was doing the happy dance that he was now next to 𝐬𝗪. Everyone sat as the two students switched seats. Sorry, Kirishima, Izuku said as they passed each other. Not a problem, Midoriya. Maybe I can calm Bakugo down some, he said with a smile. Izuku took his seat as he and 𝐬𝗪 did their best not to look at each other and look at Aizawa, who was standing in front of the class. Today, you're going to choose your class representatives. I don't care how you do it, but get it done. Immediately volunteers sounded off, from Mina calling for the spot because of how fun she would make class and Mineta promising co-ed. He was cut off by Bakugo yelling how he was the only one qualified to lead all the extras. Izuku was surprised when Denki said, "Who would ever vote for an explosive ass like you?" Before the situation could escalate, Ida stood up. We should do it democratically. Everyone votes for whomever they believe will be best for the job. Wouldn't everyone just vote for themselves? 𝐓𝗪 complained. Exactly anyone who receives more than one vote has managed to make enough of an impression on their classmates to earn their vote, Ida said, feeling quite satisfied with his speech. They followed Ida's suggestion since no one could devise a better alternative. Izuku Midoriya, 3 votes. Momo Yaozu, 2 votes. With almost everyone else receiving 1 vote, not a single vote. Ida hung his head. Izuku was shocked he had voted for Momo. Believing she would be the best to lead the class, he was going to vote for Ida. But Ida is rather inflexible. Whom the hell voted for 𝗪𝗪? Bakugo yelled. He fumed as everyone seemed to ignore him. Midoriya, you're the president, and Yaozu, you are the vice. Say something so we can get to actual work. I promise to support our president and do what I can to ensure we all have the support we need, Momo said with a bow. Izuku was a bundle of nerves. He looked over the class and saw 𝐬𝗪 give him a simple smile and thumbs up, taking a deep breath. Thank you for your confidence. I promise to do all I can to make our first year the best. Good enough. Now let us begin, Aizawa said as the two reps took their seat. Lunch. When the lunch bell rang, the class made their way to eat. Izuku smiled as he walked to his group's table. He had a group to eat lunch with. He sat between Ochaco and 𝗬𝗪, and soon Kyoka and Toru found their seats. As the group started talking, they were surprised when Momo came over and asked to join them as she wanted to speak with Izuku a little bit as they were now their class representatives. I didn't expect to get a vote, let alone 3, Izuku said. I am a little nervous about taking the role. Nonsense, Midoriya. I believe if you apply yourself, you will do an outstanding job. After all, I voted for you, Ida said. You did? Didn't you want to be class rep as well? While that is true, and the sting of not receiving a single vote will linger, it only tells me that I must strive to improve myself to obtain the position later. Besides, Midoriya, if all I knew of you was from your actions at the entrance exam, the character you displayed was more than enough to earn my vote. Ida concluded. I voted for you, Izuku. Ochaco said. You saved me at the exam, and not only that, you stepped up and fought Bakugo in the battle trial. I believe you can lead us. Izuku smiled at her kind words. Did you not vote for yourself? Toru asked. No, actually, he rubbed the back of his head. I voted for Yaoyorozu. You voted for me? Why would you do that? Yaoyorozu asked. I thought you would do a good job. You did a great job on the quirk assessment test and the ways you thought of using your quirk. And you did great in the battle trail. Izuku replied. I voted for you, 𝗵𝗃𝗺. 𝗬𝗪 chimed in. After we talked yesterday, I agree with Ida and Uraraka that you can lead the class, which will be a good experience. Thank you all. I promise not to let you down, but there is something that I have been wondering, Ida. Are you related to 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓? Ida straightened up some. Yes, I am. He is my older brother? Holy cow, you're related to a pro hero, Ochaco asked. That is so cool. He has over 60 sidekicks and runs one of the largest agencies. He is on the rise and always makes time to visit hospitals and help out in the community. Kyoka locked eyes with Izuku and mouthed, Hero otaku. Izuku quieted down. Why didn't you say something? Toru said. I didn't want anyone to judge me for my older brother's work. I wish to make a name on my merit, though he is a great inspiration. Before they could continue, the alarm exploded in the cafeteria, forcing Kyoka to grab at her head. Momo immediately sprang into action, creating a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Ochaco and 𝗬𝗪 immediately covered Izuku's eyes as she opened her top. Intruder alert! Intruder alert! This is a level 3 alert. All students are to report to their designated evacuation areas. Intruder alert! Intruder alert! This is a level 3 alert. All students are to report to their designated evacuation areas. The cafeteria exploded into a panic. As they rose from the table, the swarm of humanity pushed them back. Ida instinctively grabbed Toru, who yelled as she was knocked to the floor. Izuku activated One for All and pulled Ochaco and 𝗬𝗪 to safety, not noticing either blushing. Momo near the window shouted to him, It's just the press. They somehow broke the barrier. Izuku thought and saw the area above the exit sign. Momo, I need a bullhorn. Ochaco, can you negate my gravity? 𝗬𝗪, can you get me over above the exit sign? He called out. All 3 girls nodded. As the bullhorn passed, Ochaco placed her hand on his back, and 𝗬𝗪 grabbed him and put them right where he wanted with a mighty leap. 𝗬𝗪 was positioned behind him so no one could see her. Her arm was around his waist, and her face was buried in his back. She could smell him. His scent was almost intoxicating and nearly more than she could bear. Great job, 𝗬𝗪, he said as they landed. Everybody calm down, it is just the press. They have bypassed the barrier. We are students at UA, people are being hurt by your panic. Calm down and move in an orderly fashion. It worked as people calmed down some, and when others by the window confirmed that it was the press, everyone settled down and started to file out in an orderly manner. He looked over his shoulder, though he couldn't see her face. He heard her 𝗵𝗃𝗺 in a tone that seemed to him to be contentment. Excellent job, 𝗬𝗪. Can you get us down now? 𝗬𝗪 reluctantly brought them down. Once they landed, Ochaco released her quirk, allowing gravity to reassert itself. Momo flashed him a smile. Great job, President. Nice job as well, Vice President. Ida, does Toru need to get the medical wing? No, I'm okay, he heard Toru call back. Kirishima, can you and Ishido lead the class to our evacuation area? You got it, President. They responded. He followed at the back of the class, ensuring they were all accounted for as they made their way to their designated evacuation area. Meanwhile, the 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗧 and Mizu examined the destroyed post and how it had fallen apart. I want a report on every member to the media here, and if their Quirk could have done this, Mizu ordered Vlad-sensei, the homeroom teacher of 1B midnight. I want to file charges on every one of them for trespassing. Elsewhere, I have the schedule, and I know the perfect time for us to attack and kill All Might. Countdown. He wasn't as foolish today. He woke up extra early again, but instead of going to school hours before, he decided to get in a workout instead, using his desire to improve his control as a distraction. He could call up One for All to his 8% before he started running. He let the light show dissipate to not draw attention to himself. He had theorized that One for All ran along channels through his body, hence the red veins, and by opening it to those channels. However, those veins, his blood, and the pressure caused pain and discomfort. Why, then, would the energy carried by his blood go to his muscles that weren't used to the stimuli, and that would cause their pain, besides the obvious of forcing them to explode if too much was pushed on them because they weren't ready to handle it? It was like working out. The muscle fibers had to be torn and replaced with his new physiology to adapt better. One for All was a part of him now, but it was an adaptation and mutation process. His muscles had to be slowly replaced with the new construction data of One for All. Working out and having it flood his body was the best way to do that. It was the only way. He had even started turning it on sometimes during studying to see if it affected his mental capacity and during some of his paintings to practice fine motor control. He just let his mind go as he ran towards the beach. As soon as he hit it, it was time to push it up a notch. Pushing to 10%, he felt the sting. But it was lessened than last time. He started running up and down the beach, forcing his body to adapt and grow. Not wanting to exhaust himself, he lowered it for the run home. If I could have Recovery Girl there to accelerate my body's natural healing, I could speed up my recovery and almost cheat. I wonder if she would be willing to help me once a week. I should discuss this with All Might first, but I don't think I will. It is cheating. He still raced to get to school early, just not hours before. That cafe is excellent. Maybe he would stop by today just in case. She never went for a morning run before school, yet here she was, running around the park. Breaking off the trail, she started leaping through the trees, a course she had developed since she was a kid, ingrained in her mind, especially since the day by the river. As she came flying out from the tree line, gracefully twisting her body through the air, she landed gracefully on the bank of that very river. Gymnastics classes had been a significant investment. A quick glance to her left and her mind displayed the same image that came to her every time she landed at this spot, the boy by the river. The day she met Izuku Midoriya. Does he remember? Does that day hold any significance to him? I never forgot that day. What if I am the only one that remembers? Would that matter? I would hurt if he didn't, but it was so long ago. But if he did remember, I hope it is a good memory. And she stood there looking around for a moment. She felt the new ache of the distance away from him. Ever since she saw him again when they were apart, it would start as an unsettling feeling in her stomach, but by night it was an ache, a longing to see him. Dreams would help, but today, they had only seemed to exasperate the situation. Sue leaped over the river and backed off into the forest. Upon returning home, she couldn't resist the urge to leave and head to school early. Not hours before, but just a little early. The train. Sue sat in the train car on her journey towards school, but also towards her mate. She sat in the same train car she had before, almost like her constant return to the river. Like before, she felt him step into the train car, her head shot up, and she saw him through the crowd. Izuku made his way onto his usual train car, and something inside screamed at him to look to his left, and there she was in the same spot looking right at him just like before. He couldn't help but smile, making his way over. Sue's heart was pounding as he did so. She didn't realize that she was smiling back at him as an excited ribbit escaped her lips as he got closer. To her surprise, the person sitting next to her got up and vacated the seat. She watched as he sat next to her. He could hear her ribbit, and accompanied by the broad smile, he was melting inside, As he sat next to her, he began to think about how maybe this could be an everyday thing. He may have to figure out a way to earn some money for daily cafe visits, but in pursuit of this, he would. 𝐔𝐬𝐻, good morning, 𝗬𝗧. You are on the train early today. As are you, Aizawa. Is this going to be your normal train from now on? Why, yes, I think it would be nice to avoid some rushes, and I enjoy stopping by that cafe in the morning. Are you going to take this train too? Suppose you will be on it, then yes, tell me what train to be on. She screamed internally. Yes, I also want to avoid the rush, especially after yesterday's reporters at the gate. Did they bother you? And no, I woke up crazy early again and just came to school, so I got in before they gathered. Ochaco and Ida told me how much of a mess it was. I am pleased that you were not bothered. Were you going to stop by the cafe again today? I was planning to. Before he could say anything else. May I join you? I promised to pay the next time we went. I would love for you to join me, he said. His beaming smile and glowing eyes started to do a thing to her body that made her look away, her hands fidgeting. If you are going to be on this train every day, maybe we can make it our normal stop, like together, she asked. Luckily for her, her hair was covering the sides of her face so he couldn't see how red she was, and she couldn't see him exploding. Holy shit, an everyday thing, meeting on the same train and going to the cafe together every morning. As a couples do. Maybe I can hold her hand and… Wait, slow down, just breathe, take a deep breath, and do not fuck this up, brain. I would like that a lot, 𝗬𝗧. Maybe I can have your phone number in case I run late. I wouldn't want you to have to wait for me. Perfect reply, brain, but asking for her phone number? Look, it is a perfectly valid question. It doesn't come off as creepy that we are asking to let her know if our standing plans change so we do not inconvenience her. That is pretty smart. Good job, brain. That is what we do when you let us talk and not let your nerves interfere with us. Stick with us, kid, and you will go far. Wait, why am I having a two-party conversation with myself? That can't be good. Do you know what? That is right, we shouldn't do this again. Agreed, but thanks, brain. You're welcome, Izuku. Now focus. She is about to talk. That sounds logical. I agree I should have your number just in case my plans change as well, she said, pulling out her phone, calmly exchanging phone numbers, noticing the other's straps, and silently wondering where they could get the same one. 𝗬𝗧 did not imagine climbing into his lap out of glee. She was not using all her restraint to avoid bursting into a happy dance. She was calm, a duck on the pond for all to see. They arrived at their stop, avoiding further conversation, until they went down the street and stepped into their spot. The same hostess greeted them. She appeared to not be much older than them, with auburn hair and beautiful purple eyes. She smiled when they entered. She took their order and left them to talk while she assembled it. It wasn't until they left that 𝗬𝗧 and Izuku that a cake was tucked into the bottom. It appeared to be a simple strawberry shortcake. They noticed 2 forks and a little note written on the top. For sharing, winking face. They both froze. Fortunately, 𝗬𝗧 said, maybe we can share it later? That sounds great. Maybe after rescue training? I would like that. Are you excited about training today? I am. I want to be a rescue hero when I graduate. You would be an amazing hero no matter what field you enter. Thanks, Izuku. I think you will be too. The journey. As soon as the bell rang, Aizawa entered and called out. Class, get your costumes and get changed. Meet outside the bus. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu ensure everyone is on the bus and ready in 15 minutes. Momo stood taking attendance while Izuku politely told Ida that a seating chart was unnecessary for their trip. Everyone is accounted for, Momo said, handing him the clipboard. All right, everyone on the bus, sit where you like, he called out as everyone filed in. Aizawa came up, and after he was told everyone else was on board, he nodded as the reps boarded, taking their seats. As he boarded, he saw an empty seat next to 𝗬𝗧 and Ochaco. Both girls seemed to want him to sit with them, but luckily, depending on whom you asked, Momo decided to sit next to Ochaco, making Izuku's decision simple. The conversation was lively all around him. It was nice to hear people laughing and having a good time. Izuku, I have noticed that your quirk is like All Might's? 𝗬𝗧 said. Oh, I can see that because of the strength part. He responded, trying not to freak out a little bit. Yeah, but All Might doesn't get all that green lightning though, Kirishima said. That is pretty hardcore and flashy, man. I wish my quirk were more like that. I think you have a great quirk, Kirishima, Izuku countered, silently thanking the boy for pointing out the lightning part. It may not be as showy, but you can be a great hero. Thanks, Midoriya, he said with a smile. But you, Todoroki, and Bakugo all have some real flash. Yeah, but Bakugo is too angry ever to be a popular hero, Tsu chimed. What the fuck you saw, frog face? He shouted. Dude, you are just proving her point, Denki said, rolling his eyes. Eat a dick, shitty lightning. Izuku felt silent. It was a new experience to see people teasing Bakugo and not him. He instead got a laugh as more people joined in till the bus came to a stop. Settle down and get off the bus, Aizawa called out. Class 1A marveled as they stepped out of the bus at the awe-inspiring facility before them. Izuku was about to say something when he heard a squeal of excitement next to him as Ochaco grabbed his arm and shook him back and forth. OMG Izuku, that's 13. She said. She is my favorite hero. She is the reason I am so fascinated with space. I wanted my costume to be more like hers. But well, you know. That's awesome, Ochaco. Maybe after class, you can get her autograph or something. Izuku, you are the best, she said, still shaking him back and forth. Holding herself back from drop-kicking Ochaco, Tsu placed her hand on the girl's shoulder. If you keep shaking him like that, you will make him sick. Ochaco then seemed to realize what she was doing, blushed, and stepped back. Izuku smiled at Tsu and mouthed a thank you as the pro-heroine approached, with Aizawa stepping forward to greet her. Where is that big idiot? I thought he was supposed to meet us here, he said to the space-themed hero as she got closer in her suit. Got a call. He was running late, but he will be joining us later. She replied. All right, welcome Class 1A to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or the USJ. Today we are going to practice rescue training. Whatever field of heroics you go into will be called upon at some point in your career to participate in a rescue operation. I know some of you may be thinking of how your quirk is unsuitable for rescue, but does anyone know what my quirk is? Ochaco's hand shot up and the girl was practically jumping. Izuku smiled and wondered if that was how he acted when he got to talk about quirks. Of course, 13 called on her. Your quirk is called Black Hole. You can replicate the pull of a black hole from your hands. It is potent, and not even light can escape it, Ochaco said proudly. You are correct, and much like a black hole, anything sucked in will disintegrate. It takes excellent care and training to use quirks like mine to aid in rescue, let alone specialize in it. So, I want all of you to pay attention and give your all. What you learn today may save someone's life. Now if you would all follow me. The class did as they were told and entered the gigantic facility. They stood marveling at all the zones spread out before them. Sensei, is that part of the training? Kirishima called out. Aizawa turned to his student and saw him pointing over the railing to the plaza below. A swirling dark portal made of mist had opened, and a group of villains was pouring out. He saw a bit farther back another portal open, and out stepped the person he assumed was responsible for the portal. The man's entire body is made out of a dark purple mist, save for his eyes, which are glowing yellow. He wore an exquisite suit with a tie and had a metal brace from around his collarbone to just below his eyes. Standing in front of the mist villain was whom Aizawa assumed was the leader, a slim man with pale skin, tinged. He was wearing plain red sneakers, black pants that exposed his ankles, and a matching long-sleeved V-neck shirt. Covering his arms and shoulders were what appeared to be hands. There was one hiding his face as well. Where is All Might Kurogiri? He rasped out. He is supposed to be here. How can we start the raid if the boss hasn't even shown up yet? Oh, I get it. We must clear the trash first. Let's kill some mobs and see if we can get the boss to spawn. He paused before turning to the students. Greetings, you NPCs. I am Shigaraki, and we are the League of Villains. We have come to kill All Might, but until he arrives, you cannon fodder must do. Out stepped something. It was a giant, black humanoid monster with a very muscular body with many scars. His brain is exposed on the top of his head while his large eyes surround it. He has a beak-like mouth with an array of sharp teeth. It only wore beige pants and metal knee pads designed to emulate skulls. His feet and torso are left bare. 13, get the kids out of here, he shouted. Sensei, there are too many of them, Kirishima called after him. No hero is a one-trick pony. Now move, or you are expelled, he replied as he jumped over the rail. With me, students, 13 called as they moved towards the exit, only for the black mist to erupt around them. 𝐒𝐭𝐲 "I do apologize, but we cannot have you running off yet after the young master has gone through all the trouble of arranging a proper welcome for you all." He put his hand forward, and mist began to spill forth. "No, you don't," 𝗬𝗏 countered, the caps over her fingers flying open as her quirk activated, ripping the mist in and pulling at the villain. She didn't see another portal open behind her. Her quirk violently tore her suit open, causing the heroine to scream and fall to the floor. "Now disperse into the darkness," he said with a quiet calm that chilled the students. "I don't think so, fucker," Katsuki yelled as he leaped forward and fired off an explosion along with Kirishima following with an attack of his own. To everyone's surprise, the villain seemed utterly unharmed, and instead, a portal emerged, swallowing the two attackers. Before Izuku could react, he saw a portal appear under Tsu. He reached out only to be swallowed by a portal himself. Flood zone. Suddenly Izuku was in the air and falling. He saw he was above the USJ, heading towards the flood zone. As he plummeted towards the water, he could see a monstrous shark villain moving to intercept, activating One for All. He quickly dispersed the lightning a split second before impact. He frantically tried to move towards the surface, only to see a gaping maw closing in. Suddenly, Tsu came crashing in with a powerful kick, knocking the villain off course and pushing off out of the water, her tongue lashing out to wrap Izuku around the waist. She wiped him overhead towards the ship's deck used for training. As she landed on the hull, her tongue fired out again, snatching 𝗵𝗃𝗃 from the grasp of a group of villains that seemed to have a piranha mutation. Izuku rolled towards the deck, minimizing the impact, and coming to his feet. Tsu and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 landed near the railing. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, snot running down his face, leaped and clung to Tsu, burying his face in her chest. "Oh God, I thought I was going to die without ever getting to touch boobs. Thank you, Tsu." Izuku started to see red, but Tsu ripped him off with her tongue and sent him crashing into the deck. She turned and saw Izuku. Both immediately said, "Are you all right?" Izuku took a deep breath. "I am Tsu, thanks for the save." "Anytime, Izuku," she said, still feeling scared but feeling better that her mate was nearby. Izuku moved to the railing to see what the villains were doing. To his surprise, they were staying back. As his mind raced, he heard Tsu ask again if he was uninjured. "Of course you were there to save me. First a river, now a lake. What is next, the ocean?" Tsu froze, and so did Izuku as he realized what he had said. Turning to look over his shoulder, his heart sank as the shock on Tsu's face made him begin to freak out that he had messed up. He then saw a tear in the corner of her eye. "You remembered?" Izuku's eyes widened. "Did you?" "Yes," they both said. "I recognized you as soon as I walked into class. I was so happy," he said. "I never forgot you. I wanted to see you again." "It was the same for me. I knew it was you. I was afraid to say anything in case you forgot me." "I could never forget you, Tsu. I have thought of you almost every day since then." He slapped his hands over his mouth, trying to stop the word vomit. She stepped closer and gently pulled his hands away. "Why were you thinking about me every day?" she said, her voice trembling. "You saved me that day and made me believe I could be a hero. You were the first one to ever believe in me. And I never could get you out of my head." Before he could say any more, they heard the villains from below call out for them to send the girl, and they would let the boys live. Izuku felt a rage like never before. Tsu could feel his anger, and then she felt this warm feeling like he would protect her. "Over my dead body, assholes," he shouted. Quickly he dived backward, wrapping his arms around Tsu, and rolling from view as a hail of thorns came flying from the water, tearing through the deck where they had been standing. She was lying on top of him, their eyes locked. A groan from the side snapped them back as 𝗵𝗃𝗃 regained his sense. "We are going to die. We need to run. Maybe Tsu could distract them so we can get away." 𝗵𝗃𝗃 yelled, panic overtaking him. Tsu's tongue slapped him across his face. "You first, 𝗵𝗃𝗃," she said, anger in her voice. "𝗵𝗃𝗃, you would just sacrifice someone to save your ass. I don't want to die. They will kill us." Izuku, resisting the urge to punch the boy, walked over and placed his hands on 𝗵𝗃𝗃's shoulders. "𝗵𝗃𝗃, I need you to calm down. We will escape here. I need you, hero, up right now. If you don't, we are all dead, do you understand?" He saw 𝗵𝗃𝗃 visibly stop and take several deep breaths. "Izuku, do you think we can get out of here safely?" Tsu asked. We will, and we are, he said, giving 𝗓𝗏 and her a reassuring smile. Besides, there is some cake I want to eat. What? 𝗓𝗏 said in confusion, while 𝗧𝗏 smiled and blushed some. Izuku pondered precisely how they would make their escape. 𝗧𝗏, I know your quirk, but 𝗓𝗏, tell me about yours. I can tear these orbs off my head, and they stick to anything but me. How healthy I am dictates how sticky they are. I took a big shit before we got on the bus, so I am in good shape. Why would you say that? They are tied to my overall health, any toxins in the body, and they don't work either. Okay, that makes sense. But, honestly man, Izuku said, thinking, hey, can you throw one into the water? I want to see what the villains do. 𝗓𝗏 crept forward and tossed on, causing the villains to observe it till one reached out and touched it. He reported it to Izuku, who smiled. They don't know our quirks. They would have never sent 𝗬𝗏 here if they did. If we can break the surface with enough force, he said as a light bulb clicked in his head. It would probably hurt as he would have to use 100%, but how to concentrate? His mind clicked into place with a slight wince. He knew what had to be done. 𝗬𝗏, how far could you get with 𝗓𝗏 if you were to jump from the ship? I am not leaving you behind, Izuku, she said sternly. I am not asking you to. I want that cake now. Dude, what is with you and cake? 𝗓𝗏 questioned. Well, 𝗬𝗏, I could get us probably to shore. And if you had to reach back and grab me with your tongue? Very close to shore but not on dry land. What are you planning? You and 𝗓𝗏 are going to run and jump off the side. He stopped 𝗓𝗏 as he could see the panic. Now, the most important part is you, 𝗓𝗏. Me. Yes, when you get over the edge, I need you to start throwing your sticky balls, as many as you can, as fast as you can. Can you do that? Yes, he replied. What will that do? I will follow you guys off and use an attack to break the water surface, causing a vortex. How can you do that? You aren't that strong. 𝗓𝗏 countered, trying to fight off the panic. Remember the 0-pointer? Trust me, I got this. He said, his confidence soothing 𝗓𝗏 and doing other things to 𝗬𝗏. So, I jump with him, you fire off your attack, and then I grab you, and we get to shore? 𝗬𝗏 said. Yes, I need you to save me again. I can do that, she said with a smile. 𝗬𝗏 walked to 𝗓𝗏. If you grab me in any inappropriate way, I will throw you in the water. 𝗓𝗏 gulped, yes ma'am. Izuku activated One for All, doing a quick test of pulling it from all over his body to a finger. He looked at the 𝗬𝗏 and 𝗓𝗏. Ready? They nodded. With a burst, he pushed off and leaped into the air. Hearing the shouts below, 𝗬𝗏 followed as soon they were airborne, and 𝗓𝗏 went to work fueled by fear of death and for the first time of letting people down. His arms almost blurred with the speed and fury. He ripped the orbs from his head. Izuku felt One for All leave his body and go into a single finger. He grimaced and pushed to 100%. Air cannon, he yelled as the force ripped from his finger. He muffled his yell as his finger broke from the point of the attack. It worked perfectly. The villains were trying to avoid 𝗓𝗏's orbs. Then when air cannon hit, penetrated the bottom of the lake, creating a vortex pulling the villains and balls together into one jumbled, tangled mess. He felt 𝗬𝗏's tongue wrap around him and yank him away. He crashed into the water near the shore. The courtyard. As the trio made their way out of the water, part of them almost wished they hadn't. Aizawa was in what could be seen as a desperate battle. Over 20 villains lay unconscious or unable to continue around him. The pro hero had some cuts and bruises, but he was still standing. Not only standing, but he was also still fighting. Shigaraki and his monster stood watching. They could hear the villain counting, 30, 28, 25, 24. You're slowing down, Eraserhead. Eraserhead didn't respond. Shutting down one of his attacker's quirks and using him as a projectile weapon, Shigaraki, to everyone's horror, saw the beast at Shigaraki's side catch the projectile by his head and hold him dangling out at arm's length. Pathetic, Shigaraki sneered. They saw the self-proclaimed leader reach out and touch the suspended villain's bare chest. The man's muffled scream would haunt the 3 students for the rest of their lives, and they saw the man's body begin to decay. The skin turned gray and began to fall away into dust. This continued, the screams and thrashing increasing till it hit the man's heart. The monster, never flinching, blinking, just dropped the dead man as the ashes that were its body blew across the battlefield. 𝗓𝗏 turned to the side and retched, 𝐬 covered her mouth to hold in the scream of terror. Izuku fought back both reactions before he was true villainy. Not somebody trying to gain money. They were a killer. No remorse or words would reach this monster. Shigaraki was the true monster, not the beast that stood there motionlessly. No, that was just some golem obeying the orders of its master. And its master was a killer. Shigaraki rushed in at Aizawa. The pro, seeing the horrifying display, knew he couldn't be touched. Quirk activating, he threw out his capture scarf, hoping to pin the man's hands to his body. But the killer was a step quicker, moving slightly to the right, his hand reaching out, brushing against the captured weapon as it like the man before it began to turn to dust. Eraserhead ducked under the left hook, retaliating with an uppercut that Shigaraki leaned his head back, just enough to avoid contact. The killer's hand contacted the ground as he bicycled kick upwards, forcing the hero to dodge. Eraserhead had already recovered by the time Shigaraki had spun up to his feet. A murderous hand shot out to strike the hero dead in the chest, only for the hero's Quirk to activate and for a vicious right to meet the killer's face, sending him crashing away as the hand that covered the villain's face fell off onto the ground. Father, with the first sense of panic or emotion, others looked frantically for the lost hand. You kill him. Eraserhead had already moved to attempt to capitalize on the moment. He didn't even see the golem move. The impact never connected as Eraserhead was about to drive what he hoped would be a knockout blow to the man's temple. His arm was caught at the wrist, and sickening crunch and painful scream as the man's bones broke. The golem lifted the man off the ground and threw him with such force into the wall that it spider-webbed, blood flying out his mouth. The golem blurred and drove a vicious blow into the hero's chest. Izuku, ignoring Mineta and Tsu's cries, burst from cover, calling up 100% of One for All. Detroit Smash, he yelled as his fist drove into the Nomu. Nothing happened. Izuku noticed as he made contact that all the force was absorbed. Shock absorption. The Nomu then swung a dismissive backhand with blinding speed. If it weren't for his training with All Might, the damage would have been possibly fatal, but he was able to get his guard up, so instead, he was knocked back. Thankfully, Nomu was no longer focused on his sensei. Izuku leaped back from a thunderous overhand punch, pulling the Nomu farther still. Izuku! 𝐬 cried out as she was aware of her mate's danger. Get sensei out of here, he yelled back, ducking under another blow. Fighting against her primal instinct to protect him, she knew she couldn't keep up with that speed. She turned to Mineta. Make sure those villains can't join in the fight. I am going to go help sensei. Are you nuts? He cried back. Mineta, I don't have time for this. Either be a hero or a coward, she snapped as she leaped off towards their downed teacher. Shigaraki located the hand, securing back to his face. With a growl, he rose to his feet. Before he could say anything, Kurogiri appeared next to the killer. Young master, one of the students has managed to escape. He is undoubtedly on his way to gather reinforcements. Kurogiri, you bastard, if weren't our ticket out of here, I would kill you right now. The final boss hasn't even shown up. We are leaving. But not before we ensure All Might gets to vacuum up some of his students. The word sank into Izuku as he saw it start in slow motion. 𝐬 had landed next to Aizawa and was hoisting the unconscious man up. A black portal began to form in front of her, and Izuku could see the Shigaraki's hand disappearing into an outlet before him. Instinctively, he knew what was about to happen. 𝐬 was about to meet her end. She was about to die. His body suddenly surged with great energy, more potent than anything he had experienced. He stepped to the side of the Nomu, and with a left hand, he pushed against the creature. It flew to the side, and his right arm was about to explode. I must save and keep her. You will ninth, now use my power, save your mate. Black jagged tendrils exploded from Izuku's arm. He saw the blood fly in this state of slow motion that everything seemed to be moving in. Get away from her, he roared. Shigaraki couldn't react as the black jagged tendrils edged in teal exploded towards him, wrapping around him and violently yanking him towards a boy in a dark green costume. His arms pinned, he couldn't even defend himself as a glowing left crashed into his face, shattering his orbital socket, sending all four hands on his upper body flying off into the USJ. Kurogiri went to spring into action, only for an explosion targeted at his neck brace to send him face first into the dirt. I knew there had to be something there under that brace. Why else would you have it? Bakugo snarled as his hand pinned the teleporter to the floor. Move, and I will blow your fucking head off. The peeling itself from the wall it had been half embedded in went to move forward, only for its extremities to be encased in ice. You will not be going anywhere, foul beast, Todoroki called out. The thing appeared stopped, then they watched as it ripped itself free, leaving its trapped limbs behind. They saw it begin to regenerate rapidly. Izuku had pulled Shigaraki back to him like a paddle with a ball and, this time, punched the man in the gut, then again. A warning from Todoroki barely allowed him to get his arm up to protect his head as the Nomu punch collided with his arm, breaking it and sending him flying. The energy restraints broke, freeing Shigaraki. Nomu, free Kurogiri, he commanded. The beast rushed towards Bakugo, Izuku feeling the pressure again in his right arm and felt the tendrils explode again. They barely managed to grab Bakugo, pulling him back to avoid being turned into a smear. He struggled to his feet, his right arm broken, his left arm a bloody mess, both hanging limply at his sides. Kurogiri was suddenly free and dropped into a portal, appearing next to Shigaraki. We need to kill that brat. He's too dangerous to be left alive. Nomu ends him, Shigaraki commanded. As the Nomu tore off again, his advance suddenly faltered as purple orbs clung to its legs, tying them together. Stay away from my friend. Mineta screamed, throwing more balls at the best, his head bloody from exhaustion. The Nomu once again tore its legs from its body, like a movie monster that would not be stopped from obtaining its prey. As it moved, Izuku didn't notice a portal opening behind his head. A hand emerged, ready to end the threat. Tsu had launched herself into the air, her tongue flying out toward her mate in a desperate attempt to save him. She could feel that she was too late in her heart. Desperately, she screamed a warning. Suddenly, before the hand could make contact, a gunshot rang out, piecing the hand and causing Shigaraki to scream. Pulling it back to him, appearing from an air vent, was Snipe. The doors to the USJ exploded as All Might came exploding in, landing directly in front of Izuku. Rest now, young Midoriya, for I am here. The rest of you fall back. Be careful, All Might, he has some sort of shock absorption and regeneration, Izuku said. The hero just nodded. We can help. Bakugo and Todoroki protested. I have no doubts about that, but I cannot fight at full capacity with you here. Now damn your egos and fall back. Tsu's tongue found its mark as Izuku was ripped back to safety. She pulled him into her arms. He was a mess and his arms hung loosely. She could see blood soaking through all parts of his costume. He weakly smiled at her. It's okay, Tsu, it's okay. She clung to him tightly as she landed with him, doing her best to absorb any impact. As they landed, Ochaco and Ida rushed forward with first aid supplies as the faculty came in right behind Nizu, barking orders. Shigaraki saw it all had slipped away. His hand was useless, his face broken, multiple ribs broken. Lungs were probably punctured as blood was starting to choke him. Nomu, kill All Might. Kurogiri gets us to the doctor. As a portal swallowed them, he made sure to burn the image of Izuku Midoriya into his mind. So, they ran, leaving their monster behind him. All Might said, loosening up. Young Midoriya said shock absorption, but that is not shock negation. Let me show you what a true pro can do. The two behemoths collided. First, they could be followed, but soon they became too fast for the naked eye to track. Hundreds of blows were traded, and the wind generated threatened to blow everything away, including the students. Tsu sheltered Izuku with her body. Soon the monster was lifting off the ground. With a final shout, Manchester smash, the beast flew back, crashing through the wall. His body was smoking as his limit had broken before the battle started. Izuku saw his mentor, realizing he tried to reach his feet, only for the hero to shake his head as cement barriers emerged, blocking him from view. Tsu still cradled Izuku, tears held at the corner of her eyes. He smiled, wishing he could hug her. He could see the corners of his vision getting darker as everything caught up with him. Tsu was looking down at him, noticing blood pouring faster from his wounds. She cried out. Ida and Ochaco yelled for assistance as all the bandages they had managed started soaking through. Can we still share the cake? He asked. His vision was getting darker, and he coughed and tasted blood. Of course, Izuku, just stay with me, please. Okay? Was all he managed as darkness consumed him. She watched in horror as Izuku's eyes rolled back into his head and blood fell from his mouth. The class all gathered at the entrance stepped back as the paramedics came rushing in. Ochaco and Ida had to pull 𝗬𝗪 away. She was sobbing and clawing at him, almost rambling about him having to stay with her, that he couldn't leave her after they just found each other again. Ochaco and Ida had a hard time till 𝐒𝐽𝐽 ran over and told 𝗬𝗪 that Izuku's heart was still beating. 𝗬𝗪 turned to her friend, wondering if 𝐒𝐽𝐽 was lying. 𝐒𝐽𝐽 put one of her jacks near 𝗬𝗪's ear so she could hear what 𝐒𝐽𝐽 did. Instinctively, she knew that heartbeat helped her settle down. To others' surprise, Minato walked up, heavy bandage around his head, and placed a hand on her shoulder. He is going to make it, Ajui. He is too strong not to. Besides, he wants that cake or whatever he was talking about. 𝗬𝗪 turned to the boy, Minato. My friends call me 𝗬𝗪. The boy smiled and helped her stand as Izuku was loaded onto a gurney and rushed out. Come on, 𝗬𝗪, let's get outside to make sure they load him up properly. Between Minato and 𝗎𝗽, they helped her outside. She was still terrified as the ambulance sped away, but promised that when he made it through this, she wasn't about to risk letting him slip through her fingers. Inko Midoriya, by nature, was nervous when it came to her son. She worried and fretted more than average, and she knew that. It just wasn't something that she could turn off or ignore. It may be troublesome, but that was just the way she was. Their relationship troubles had started the day they went to the doctor and received the diagnosis that Izuku was quirkless. Like all children of that age, he dreamed of getting a quirk and becoming a hero. When the doctor cruelly told him to give it up, the boy was destroyed. When Izuku sat in the office chair watching the debut of All Might over and over crying, his world crumbling, he needed a lifeline. He turned to the person that should have been the one to give it to her. And she failed. Too wrapped up in feeling that his lack of quirk was her fault. All she could tell him was how sorry she was instead of telling him that he could still chase his dream. She couldn't find a way to correct that mistake for many years. She didn't step in to do it. It was the Frog Princess, a girl with a frog mutation that he had met after being knocked off a log over a river. Izuku relayed how the girl had told him he could still be a hero even without a quirk and how excited it made him feel. Inko smiled when at the end, he added how pretty she was. For the rest of the year, he would go back to that place trying to see her again and never did. It was an obsession with him, always looking this way and that whenever they were in public for a while. The girl took on a mythic quality in that whenever he was down, she could hear him say how Sachi believed so that he couldn't stop. He started drawing, never to forget her. It was desperate. Inko felt that. No one else was giving him a chance, so he clung to one person that did. Then the sludge villain incident happened, the meeting with All Might and the offer to train to become a hero. Inko wanted to say no, the instinctive desire to protect her baby calling out, but she saw the crying little boy in that office chair and knew this was her chance, so she said yes. When Izuku finally shared the truth with her, she was upset that he had hidden it from her, but in a way, she understood. There was still a gulf between them. This was his way of finally closing that, and it did just that. Inko began working out some with him. She couldn't keep his pace, but the plump woman found her own with some help from Toshi. Seeing Izuku change inspired change in her, long-held dreams sprung forth, and new desires for life surged. Quietly she filed for divorce from Hisashi, Izuku's father and her husband. She hadn't seen him in over a decade, and he hadn't called in about as long. There was no reason for her to lie to herself or Izuku. Izuku was surprised he was still alive. He had assumed that he had died long ago, and Inko had never told him. He hugged her and said that while things may have been easier if he was around, he simply wasn't. She was all he needed. There may have been some water damage, but she knew something was wrong when her phone rang while on shift at the hospital. Toshi and Izuku knew her schedule, and her only real friend Mitsuki wouldn't be calling anyway. Then she saw the caller ID of Yue, and her heart almost burst from her chest. "This is Inko," she answered. "Mrs. Midoriya, this is Principal Nizu of Yue. I will make this direct and to the point. There was an incident today during a training exercise. Your son has been seriously injured and is being treated as we speak. We believe it would be best for you to get here as soon as possible." "How serious is it?" "I am not the medical director nor a doctor, but a car should be arriving for you within the next 5 minutes. I will be waiting," she said as calmly as possible before rushing off to find her supervisor. Her supervisor, well, the whole floor where Inko worked, knew her son had made it into UA, but as soon as she saw Inko's face and heard the words training accident, she immediately gave the mother permission to leave. Inko sat in the back of the car in silence after the driver told her he had no further information. As the vehicle arrived at the gates, she saw the pro hero midnight waiting. "Mrs. Midoriya, please follow me. I will take you to the medical wing." "How's my son?" "He is in surgery as we speak, ma'am." "I am afraid that is all I know. Principal Nizu is waiting for you and will be able to give you a full update." "How did this happen?" "I am sorry, Mrs. Midoriya. We are still sorting all that out. The principal will be the one to give you all the details." Something significant must have happened as they were moving through the campus. She could tell that it was on lockdown, and she caught a glimpse of Mitsuki and Masaru. With clearly worried looks on her face, her heart sank. Midnight led her into the medical area before leading her into an observation room where she saw a strange mouse-bear-dog creature sitting next to another pro whom Inko was unfamiliar with. "That is all for now, Snipe. Continue your investigation." The man, dressed in what appeared to be a tribute to American cowboys for yesteryear, stood and tipped his hat to Inko before he exited the room, leaving them alone. Inko turned to look through the window and saw Izuku on an operating table. There was bloodied gauze everywhere and fury of activity. Inko's hand went to her mouth in shock and fear. "I apologize for having to meet you not only under these circumstances but also while he is still in surgery. I am the principal of UA Nizu." Not taking her eyes from the scene before her, "Is he going to make it?" "As of right now, all I can say is that recovery girl is optimistic." "Why isn't he in a real hospital?" "I can assure you that our medical staff is on par if not superior to any hospital in the country, but I hate to say it, but we did not believe he would survive the trip without immediate medical attention." "How did this happen?" "I know this is hard, Mrs. Midoriya, but I need you to sit down and pay attention to what I am about to say." Inko turned and sat facing the principal, trying immensely not to pull the man to her and shake him violently. "Speak," she demanded. Nizu, keeping his voice as calm as he could, during a rescue training today at an on-site facility. The facility itself was infiltrated and attacked by a group of villains. From the preliminary information, we gathered that the students were not the target of the attack, but instead, a faculty member who was supposed to be at the facility but was running late. Continue. During the course of the attack, the students were separated, but they were able to defend themselves and make their way back to the exit. It was then that your son and his group witnessed their homeroom teacher, who had attempted to engage a large group of villains to allow his class to escape, suffer a devastating attack, and your son attempted to engage the villains and save his teacher. Did he do so? Yes, he was able to delay what most assuredly be the death of his teacher until help had arrived. And this is how his injuries happened. From what we know, yes, the investigation is ongoing as we speak. Were any of the other students injured? Yes, there were numerous injuries amongst them, though none to the extent of your son. Forgive me, Principal, but how did this happen? This is UA. Is it not your job to ensure the safety of my son? This is the first week. Is that what I can expect? Mrs. Midoriya, I understand that you are upset. Do you? Is your son undergoing emergency surgery because the institution you trusted with his safety failed miserably during the first week? There was no. That is your job, Principal, to be prepared for the unforeseen, the unknown, to protect the children within your walls from villains attacking them while on campus. Please don't give me platitudes about how you couldn't have known. While building a huge shining beacon for heroes, you never considered that some villain group wouldn't dare take the chance. Please leave if you have nothing to say. I want to focus on my son. Nizu knew there was nothing he could say right now. Instead, he bowed and left as requested. He was angry in part because of how right she was, and he knew that her anger was going to be shared with all the other parents he was about to speak with, that the press and the outside would question his and the faculty's ability to protect the students under their care. Someone had come and taken a swing at the mighty UA and left them bloodied. A long day was going to get longer. Inko sat and watched as her son battled. She watched the monitor, and due to her training, she could tell that he was stable. Amount of blood and the transfusions were concerning. She sat silently until she saw the older woman in charge step out. It was only a few minutes until the woman entered the observation room. Mrs. Midoriya? Yes, doctor. Your son is going to be okay. Unfortunately, there is going to be scarring. His right arm was broken, his left arm suffered severe and multiple lacerations, fractured ribs, numerous torn ligaments and tendons in his legs, and some muscle completely torn from the bone, along with more lacerations. The biggest problem was stopping all the bleeding. But he is going to be fine. We will need to hold him overnight to ensure there are no complications with transfusions or sutures. In the morning, I will be able to use my quirk to heal the arm and ribs completely. I would do so now, but he is too exhausted. Thank you for your efforts and saving him, Inko said with a bow. When can I see him? He is being cleaned and will be transported to his room in about 30 minutes. I don't expect him to regain consciousness for at least another hour or two. Also, a few of his friends have come hoping to check on him. They are in the waiting room. I understand. Inko took some deep breaths and thanked her ancestors before heading out to the waiting area. When she walked in, she saw a few students with their parents sitting in the little room. From the descriptions Izuku had given her, she could guess who most of them were. When she entered, the students immediately stood. You all must be Izuku's friends. He has told me about all of you. He will be fine and be held overnight, but Recovery Girl is confident he will be released tomorrow. He is still asleep and will be for several more hours. I am not sure of the ordeal you all have gone through, but it makes me happy to know he has such friends. But please go home. Your parents are worried. She saw the students nod and their parents give her a silent thank you as they began to make their way out till the last one remaining was her. Inko knew it. 𝗬𝗵, the frog princess. She could see the girl's mother trying to coax the girl to leave, but she wasn't moving, instead staring at a small box with the words, "For sharing" on the top. 𝗬𝗵, we should go now, he is going to be okay, but right now he needs his sleep. But I promised him, the girl said, holding back tears, that we would share the cake after training. Inko could feel the heartache emanating from the girl. You must be 𝗬𝗵? Inko said, catching the girl's attention. Yes, ma'am, 𝗬𝗵 responded. I understand that the cake is significant to you, and I am positive it is for Izuku as well, but he is going to be asleep for a while, sweetie. But how about this? If your mom is okay with it, how about I call you tomorrow when he gets out and we get home? Then you can come over, and you can share that cake. Would that be okay? 𝗬𝗵 nodded. That would be nice, thank you. Ms. Midoriya, please have him message me when he wakes up. It would help me feel better. I promise he will, Inko smiled. It made 𝗬𝗵 feel better as she reminded her so much of Izuku. Inko looked at her mother. I would very much enjoy it if you accompanied her as well. I would like to get to know you better. That sounds nice. We will look forward to your call, the woman said, leading her daughter out. Inko sat waiting until a nurse came and led her back to Izuku's room. She saw Toshi sitting outside with bandaging on his arm. Inko, he said softly, I am so sorry. This is my fault. The villains were after me. I assumed as much. No offense to the rest of the faculty, Inko responded. Where were you? I used up most of my time on my way towards school this morning, and would not have been able to hold my form for rescue training. Toshi, when Izuku came to me and told me the truth about everything we discussed, I told you about my fears and your dedication to teaching him and the future generation of heroes. I know how important being a hero is to you, but you no longer have the luxury or the ability to do both. It would be best to choose either your All Might the hero or All Might the teacher. Some of his is your fault, but more lies with those who attack these kids. But if you cannot commit to instructing these kids, you should step aside and let them find someone who will. Now excuse me. I need to check on Izuku. The word stung, but Inko was right. He had not only made a commitment to Izuku but to the other students, and his absence today had caused them to be hurt. Toshi waited until the door was closed before he walked away. He had to make a change, and though he was sure of what needed to be done, he had to think of how best to execute it. Inko walked into the darkened room and sat next to her son. His breathing was steady, and all his readings were within proper ranges. She looked at all the bandages covering him inside. She knew this scene would be possible in the future, but not within the first week of school. She let all her sobs out quietly, purging them from her system, so that she could smile for him when he awoke. She would support him with everything she could and could give. That was her job, and she wasn't about to fail it again. The ride home was silent when Baru escorted her daughter, who was protecting the box of cake like it was the most important thing. Once 𝐬𝐻 had secured the box in the refrigerator, she turned to her mother and let her emotions flood forth. 𝗵𝗲 kept her younger siblings at bay until his daughter could compose herself. Much like them, he wanted to run and hug her, holding her tight after the news had reached them. Her siblings knew something was wrong. Their father returned home, and their mother and older sister did not. Then they saw the news: UA attacked, students injured, villains at large. Then the photo of their sister's class came on the screen, and they panicked. It had taken 𝗵𝗲 over an hour to calm them down. It took 𝗵𝗃 sending them photos of their sister for the tears to stop finally. 𝗵𝗃 whispered into 𝗬𝗏's ear. The young girl nodded, turning around and calling her younger siblings. They sprang from the room they were waiting in and bull rushed their sister. Her younger sister was in tears as all the worry and fear the little girl held flooded out, her brother doing his best to hold back his tears. She wrapped them up into a tight hug as her father did the same to all three of them. They stood like that with 𝗵𝗃 joining them till they all calmed down, and 𝗵𝗲 left to pick up some burgers from 𝗬𝗏's favorite spot, Burger Bombs. Whenever her phone would buzz, she grabbed it quickly, hoping it was a message from him. It was her friends checking on her and each other. She responded that the anxiety inside her was difficult to contain. The family had just finished eating and were going to gather to watch a movie. 𝗬𝗏 had gone to her room to change her clothes when her phone rang, and she almost dropped it. The caller ID read, Midoriya Izuku. 𝗬𝗏, hello Karo Izuku. Izuku, hi 𝗬𝗏. She noticed his voice sounded a bit harsh and tired. 𝗬𝗏, Izuku, are you okay? Izuku, yeah, 𝗬𝗏, I am going to be fine. Recovery girl said that there is going to be some scarring, however. 𝗬𝗏, that's okay as long as you are alright, Ribbit. Are you in pain? Izuku, some, but they gave me a shot, and I feel pretty good right now. I am sorry I scared you. I had to do something. 𝗬𝗏, I know, Izuku. Thank you for saving my life. Izuku, I owed you from the river. 𝗬𝗏, I always remembered you. I wanted to ask if you remembered. Izuku, I could never forget about you, 𝗬𝗏. You're too beautiful for me to ever forget. 𝗬𝗏, what? Izuku, I said you were too beautiful for me ever to forget. What is that, Mom? Oh, okay, 𝗬𝗏, I have to go. I need to eat something because of the painkillers. I just wanted to hear your voice rather than text you. I hate that I couldn't hear your voice after talking to you in the cafe the first time. I can't wait to see you again. Good night. 𝗬𝗏, good night. Oh, my head feels funny. I did what, Mom? No, I wouldn't do that. Twice. I don't think so, but you know it's true. I have been looking for her ever since that day. No, I am not going to show her that notebook. Fine, I will eat. But you too, 𝐻𝗎. She is beautiful. You saw her, right? I mean, boom, drop dead gorgeous. Of course, I hung up. Man, I am so hungry. You got me 2 sweet burgers. You are the best mom ever. I can't wait to share that cake. Maybe tomorrow? I wish I could see her tomorrow. What would I do? I don't know, tell her everything. Yeah, that's what I would do. She might think I am a weirdo, but I can't help it. She's the girl of my dreams. Fine, I will eat. Yeah, my phone is right there. Inko, see you tomorrow, 𝗬𝗏. Click. 𝗬𝗏 just sank to the floor, her phone still held to her ear. Did he mean it? Or was it just because of the painkillers? No, it had to be honest. He kept talking about it after he thought he hung up. Her heart was pounding against her ribcage. She didn't know what emotion was taking over. Instead, she just called for her mom. 𝗵𝗃, thinking something was wrong, came in to find her daughter half naked on the floor. In what would be described as word vomit, she just relayed the conversation, repeating the parts where he called her beautiful and dream girl. It took 10 minutes to get that part understandable from her daughter. Then the part about painkillers and her worry that he was lying. 𝗵𝗃 smiled and placed her hand on 𝗬𝗏's shoulder. I highly doubt it, honey. It may have been something he didn't realize he was saying, but it doesn't mean he didn't mean it. She had just finished dressing when she and her mother heard a call from the kitchen. It was her father. Whose cake is this? Both women bolted from the kitchen, yelling in unison. For the record, the cake was safe and untouched that night. Izuku. He awoke to the morning light in the hospital room. His body was sore and itchy from the bandages. Next to his bed in a chair sat his mom sleeping. Reaching over, he saw his phone and dozens upon dozens of missed messages. He smiled as he realized they were all from his classmates, minus Bakugo. Most of them were. I got your number from Momo. This is insert name. I want to make sure you're okay, Prez. Midoriya Izuku. Izuku sent a message to Momo to let the class know that he was okay but still in the medical ward and would talk to them once he was released. She responded promptly, thanking him for the update and saying she would inform the class. Izuku, good morning, Ochaco. I wanted to tell you that I am awake, and other than feeling sore, I feel good. I am still in the medical ward, but they said I might go home today. I hope you are not injured. Ochaco, OMG Izuku. I was so worried. I was fine. Just some scraps and bruises. I was so concerned about you. Are you sure you are okay? Do you need anything? I saw some of your fights in the plaza. It was terrific that you saved Bakugo and Sensei. But promise me you are okay, and not just saying that. Izuku, I promise. My arm is broken, and there are some other fractures, but Recovery Girl said she could heal them today. Ochaco, how can you have a broken arm and say you are okay? I don't know whether to punch you or hug the shib out of you right now. Please try to be more careful, Izuku, you're my friend, and I don't want to see you like that again. Izuku, I promise to do my best, Ochaco, but please don't punch me. I might break if you do. Ochaco, fine. No punches, but you owe me a hug when you see me. Got it. Izuku, if that keeps me from getting punched into the sun, then no problem. Izuku leaned back as he just realized he would have to hug Ochaco. As he thought about it, he considered that it didn't sound that bad. Besides, they were friends. Of course, his conversation with Ida was much stiff, with the speedster sending several articles on recovery and health after the battle. His mom had awakened at this point, and after making sure he was okay, she told him she would head home to clean up and change to get him some clothes to wear home. It wasn't long after that for Recovery Girl to come in, and after an examination and a small lecture, she kissed his forehead. Izuku could immediately feel the process kick in and suddenly felt tired again. He tried to fight it but fell asleep again for a few hours. When he awoke, sitting at his bedside was All Might. The man wore a worried look on his face as he looked off into the distance, seemingly lost in thought. All Might. Young Midoriya, it is a pleasure to see you awake. How are you feeling? A little tired after treatment this morning, but other than sore, I feel good, he replied gingerly, moving his previously broken arm. Are you okay, All Might? As well as I can be. That fight took more out of me as I had already reached my limit before arriving at school yesterday. I can only maintain my hero form for 1 to 1.5 hours now. My time is coming to an end much sooner than anticipated. I'm sorry, All Might, if I can get stronger or if I had better control. Young Midoriya, you have accomplished so much in the year we have been together, more than I could have dreamed. The fault here lies with me, not you. All Might, how can you? Please, young Midoriya, the hero said. When I decided to make you my successor, I committed to you when I decided to become a teacher here at UA. I committed to your classmates and all the other heroic course students. What I failed to do was to honor my commitment to either truly, but you helped me so much, and the training. Yes, I helped you physically, but you figured out to spread one for all throughout your body instead of one spot. I was no help in that area. I am unfit as a teacher, but that is going to change. I can no longer be the symbol of peace and a teacher for the next generation. I must choose, and I choose you and the future young Midoriya. This world will depend on you and those who journey with you, and I choose to put my faith in all of you. But do not fret, the symbol of peace will still be around when needed, but I will take a public step back. I promise I will ensure that the world keeps turning till you are ready, young Midoriya. I won't let you down, All Might. The boy said, fighting back the Midoriya tears. Now, tell me about the tendrils. I don't know what happened, everything slowed down, and I was reaching out to Tsu. I knew she was about to die and desperately wanted to save her. I had to save her, and I heard this voice telling me I would. Then there was this immense pressure, different than anything, and they exploded out. And your control of them? I don't know. I wasn't thinking. They seemed to react to my thoughts, like when I reached out for Bakugo when the Nomu attacked. I see, we are going to have to look into this together, but as of now, there is a police detective that needs to speak with you about yesterday if you are up to it. On cue, the door opened and installed whom Izuku assumed was the police detective, a tall man with short black hair and somewhat rectangular black eyes. He was in his uniform, which consists of his signature tan overcoat and matching hat, underneath which he wears a black suit, a green tie at his neck with matching slacks, and dress shoes. All Might, is he ready to talk with me? Wait, he knows. Izuku said, panicking. Yes, young Midoriya. This is Detective Tsukachi. He knows all about me and One for All, so please don't hold anything back. Okay? Before we begin, I need to inform you that my quirk is called lie detection, and it works just as you imagine. Holy cow. Can it tell if I am lying by omission, or what if I don't know that I am lying and pass false information along, believing it to be true? Or if something happens and I forget, I lie but don't know I am lying. Does it work, then? What are the limitations? Izuku rambled, causing the detective to raise his eyebrow and All Might to crack a smile. Sorry, Naomasa, he likes quirks. Young Midoriya, you are doing it again, he said, lightly bopping him on the head. Sorry, he said sheepishly. That is a fantastic talent, Mr. Midoriya, but you should get your rambling under control. To be able to break down my quirk from me giving you a simple explanation to come up with questions and possible workarounds is terrifying if in the wrong hands. Now let us begin. All Might stood for the interview as Izuku ran through everything well, almost everything keeping the interactions between him and Tsu to himself. He explained why he engaged the Nomu and Shigaraki, that he was attempting to withdraw from the fight, but he was unable to as his attacks were ineffective against the Nomu, so he was doing his best to kite the monster away so Tsu could grab their sensei and escape. After the interview was completed, the two adults exited as his mother entered, followed by Recovery Girl. After the pro-heroine removed his fore and got him unwrapped, she told him he was free to go, but he was not to do any training or to exert himself in any way until his follow-up appointment Monday morning. He would have to wear an arm sling, otherwise he could leave. His mother helped him dress as they both had a chance to take in scars that now littered his arms and legs. She sighed and hugged him. There was no hiding that they bothered her. It proved that her baby had been hurt. The ones on his left arm were concentrated on his forearms. They were oblong with jagged edges but seemed to form a pattern. Searching his memory, this was the spots they had erupted from. A jagged scar ran down the length of his finger from his attack at the lake. The ones on his legs were random and jagged from where pushing One for All had caused ruptures along his muscles, like on his right arm and body. Izuku looked at them and wondered how others would react if they were revolted. He asked if Tsu would be disgusted. It made his chest hurt. While Izuku was finishing, Inko stepped out and called Baru, telling her they were on the way home, and asked if she wanted to bring Tsu over. Yue provided them with a car service to take them home. She had gone through as much of her routine as she could that morning. An early text from Momo to the class told her that Izuku had communicated that he was awake and expecting to go home today and that he would talk to the class later. She wanted to call or message him, but what if he didn't like that? Fret and doubts from last night's call and all that had happened this week were running through her mind. She had emerged from her shower when her mother came to her and told her to get dressed. Inko had informed her that Izuku was on his way home and had invited them to come by so the two kids could share their cake. Tsu was lost in her closet, trying to figure out what to wear. She wanted to look cute as this was going to be the first time he would see her in casual clothes, and after he had told her she was beautiful last night, she wanted to make sure he looked her best with help from Baru, who reminded her daughter that he had just gotten out of the medical wing that she shouldn't dress up too much. A simple white sundress turned out to be the victor. The weather was still warm. The simple yellow flowering pattern looked nice, and white sandals completed everything. She insisted on her mother helping her with a bit of makeup. Taking a deep breath, she secured the precious cargo from the fridge as they made their way to leave. Izuku. He was glad to be home and even happier to shower when his mother suggested it. He realized that she was a genius. The shower was long and comforting. Washing everything away was soothing to his mind and body. The process took longer as he had to be careful of his right arm and not scrub too hard so he didn't reopen anything. Ultimately, he felt 1,000,000 times better. As she made his way to his room, he saw an excellent pair of khaki pants and a green short-sleeve button-down shirt. Mom, what is up with these clothes? We have someone dropping by who wants to check on you, and I don't want you looking like a homeless child. But Mom... Now, mister, get moving. Izuku knew better than to argue, and as hardly anyone had ever come over, he was left at a loss as to whom it may be. Making sure he looked presentable, his mind wandered to the cake. I wonder if she saved it. It's a shame we didn't get to share it. I wonder if I should message her and tell her I am home. He was pulled by his thoughts by the doorbell and his mother asking him to get the door. As he passed the kitchen, he could see her tossing off her apron and straightening her clothes. She was now dressed in a casual skirt and blouse. Izuku was confused, but not wanting to keep the mystery visitor waiting, he walked over and opened the door. He almost fainted dead away. The drive took too long, the stairs were too high, and the walk to the door was miles long. The aim was 20 minutes, 2 flights of stairs, and 4 doors down. Here she stood in front of his door. She could sense him. She knew he was right there when her mother rang the doorbell. 𝐬𝐶 had not moved. Only holding the cake in her hands, she quietly debated leaping over the railing and running away, but the image of him bloodied in her arms and the thought that she may be coming here dressed in black to offer her condolences for having lost her mate without ever saying everything hurt too much for her to run. It also gave her the resolve that he had almost fallen through her fingers yesterday. He would not do so today. Hell or high water, she would let him know what kind of hold he had on her and pray that the sweet words she heard last night were his true feelings. Then the door opened, and the first thing that escaped her lips was an excited ribbit. Izuku. Now he had to question if he was insane or possibly hallucinating when he opened the door. At first, all he saw was 𝐬𝐶 in a sundress holding their cake. He wasn't sure how to react when he heard a ribbit escape her lips. He thought this was all a hallucination, and he was dying on the floor of the plaza at the USJ. Please, whatever divine spirit is giving me this vision, do not let it end soon. 𝐬𝐶 blushed, letting out a questioning 𝐭𝐻, and the woman behind her, only now did Izuku notice, giggled. Never mind, kill me now. 𝗧𝗵𝗃, it is nice to see you. Would you like to come in? He finally managed, stepping backward to allow them entrance. The visit. Baru had to gently nudge 𝐬𝐶 for the girl to move, as she blushed furiously from Izuku's declaration. The two entered to see a smiling Inko who was suppressing her giggle. Welcome to our home, she said with a bow. Thank you for having us, Baru said, returning the bow. Yes, thank you, 𝗧𝗵 managed. I brought the cake. Thank you. Would you like to eat it now or a little later? Izuku responded. Later, I was wondering if we could talk. Maybe 𝗏𝗏, she said, looking at the floor. I think that sounds splendid. Why don't you two go talk in your room, Izuku, while Mrs. Aizawa and I visit in the kitchen? Inko suggested. Baru took the cake from her daughter. Yes, maybe you two should visit together, especially after yesterday. Both teens wanted to protest, but the urge to talk to each other was too strong. Would you like to see my room? Izuku asked. Yes, please, 𝐬𝐶 said, following him down the hall. The kitchen. When they disappeared, Baru turned to Inko. We need to talk, the woman said. I think we do. Tea or something stronger? Inko replied. Depending on how today goes, we may need something stronger for later. But tea for now. The two women took a seat. I wanted to know if you were familiar with the phenomenon among those with animal quirks known as imprinting. You mean when someone with an animal imprints on someone thinking of them as a mate? Yes, what are your thoughts on that? I can be challenging for the one who imprints if the other does not feel that same way, or if they have evil or sinister intentions. It happened in my family before. My great-great-grandfather had a woman with a lizard mutation imprint on him. What happened? They got married and had 3 children. Unfortunately, when a drunk driver killed him, she lost the will to live and died after that. One of his sons imprinted on a woman who was abusive though, and even though she caused him misery, he could not look past the imprinting. So your family has a history of this? You could say that my great-great-grandmother was the one with green hair, Inko said. I am assuming that your daughter has imprinted on Izuku, and you are worried about how this will turn out. Yes, Baru said as she studied the woman closely. Izuku has, for lack of a better word, obsessed with your daughter ever since she saved him by the river. He would constantly search for her. If he thought he saw her, he would want to run after them to see if it was her. He came to me crying one day because he felt he couldn't remember her. That was the day I bought him his first sketchbook. I told him to draw her so he wouldn't forget. He did. Every time he dreamed of her, he outlined what he dreamed. I couldn't tell you if he has imprinted on her, but I can tell you that whenever I have asked him who the most pretty girl he has ever seen is, his answer has always been the frog princess from the river. Frog princess. When he first met her, she was so beautiful and special to him that she had to be a princess that had emerged from her castle to save him. Is that why you invited us over? In part, I could tell how important it was to 𝐬𝐶 to share that piece of cake with him. I am guessing they promised it at some point during the battle. And if she could share the cake with him, everything would be okay. That was my thought, and they are awfully quiet. Perhaps we should check on them. Izuku's room. Both were highly nervous. For Izuku, no one other than his mother and All Might had been in his room in recent memory, but thankfully for this moment, after All Might had teased Izuku, the boy had cleared out some of his All Might merchandise so it wasn't as embarrassing. Unfortunately, he didn't realize that sitting on an easel was a large canvas with a sketch of 𝗬𝗬 from the other day, her head cocked to the side, her finger by her mouth. 𝗬𝗬 was going not only into a boy's room but her mate's room. She was nervous and excited at the same time. She was surprised when Izuku dashed in and threw a cloth over some drawings as they entered. The room was spotless. She noticed some workout gear near the bed. His desk was neatly tucked into the corner, and the opposite seemed to be set up for drawing. She could see books and notebooks lining the shelf, including art books. "I didn't know that you draw," she said. "Oh yeah, it is one of my hobbies along with quirks and stuff," he said. "Would you show me some of your drawings?" she asked. "I would like to see them if you don't mind." "Oh sure, have a seat," he said. When she sat on his bed, he almost died. 𝗬𝗬 sat on the bed, wanting to flop over and inhale all she could. "I like your dress, 𝗬𝗬. It looks very pretty." "Thank you, Izuku. You look nice as well." She noticed it took him a minute to choose a sketchbook before retrieving one from his bag. She saw a more significant second in the bag but said nothing. When he handed it over, she immediately opened it. There were a few drawings of some landscapes, their art class, and Ochaco and Ida in their hero costumes. She saw some outlines of a few other class members, but none of her. It made her want to pout some. "Izuku, did you mean what you said last night?" She closed the notebook. "What did I say?" 𝗬𝗬 took a deep breath, clutching the edge of her dress. "You said I was too beautiful for you ever to forget. Is that true? You said that you thought about me almost every day, that you couldn't get me out of your head. Was all that true?" Izuku didn't know what to say. His mind fuzzy filtered in some of his comments from the night before. He immediately wanted to play the confused act and claim he had no idea when a woman's voice sounded in his head. "Is this why you saved her? Is this why you were so desperate to do so? You almost died yesterday night. Will you stand there and deny her the answers screaming to come out?" Izuku didn't know what to say or how to say it. Instead, she felt her will breaking in the silence until he walked over to his bag and pulled out the second art book. "It was all true," he said in a whisper. He handed her the notebook and, wordlessly, she took it and opened it. It was all her, in poses and settings she never had been in, as she made her way towards the end, her in uniform. At the cafe across from him, a random pose or look, all lovingly crafted. "Forgive me," he whispered again, his eyes closed. "Ever since that by the river, I couldn't get you out of my head, so I learned to draw so I wouldn't forget you. Every time I would have a dream, I would try and draw it so I could never forget you. When I saw you in class, I couldn't help it. I wanted to scream for joy, and when I didn't get to talk to you, I was worried I was blowing it. I couldn't sleep that next day because of the thought of you, and then you were on that early train. I woke up just as early the next day and took the same early train just in case you were on it. No other girl or woman I have ever seen is as beautiful as you. I am sorry if that sounds creepy or you never want to talk to me again. But..." He was cut off as he felt something soft and moist against his lips. His eyes snapped open. She was kissing him. "Kiss her back, you idiot." He wasn't sure what to do. He slowly returned the kiss. Soon, they were just like that, her arms around his neck and his around her waist, lost in a kiss. It was electric. Their bodies started sending strange urges rushing through them, but all they could do at that moment was hold each other and kiss. It felt right, and it seemed to calm a roaring fire inside. The sounds of photos taken took a minute to filter into their brains, causing them to return to the real world. The two turned towards the open door to see their mothers snapping photos. "Good job, Izuku. Now make sure you ask her to be your girlfriend before she gets away," Inko commented. "𝗬𝗬, don't let go now," 𝗬𝗲 added as they closed the door. 𝗬𝗬 and Izuku stood there looking at each other, both very red, but neither breaking their embrace. "Please be my boyfriend," she whispered to him. "Please, Izuku." "Yes," he said back and, in surprise, moved to them both. He leaned down and kissed her. A content rib bit escaped her mouth, causing her to pull back. "Don't I think it is adorable?" he said, pulling her back into the kiss. The feeling of relief that washed over Tsu that had built up like a rocket ignition just passed away in that kiss. She could feel that claim inside of her of mine, just consuming her, and it felt right. She knew at this exact moment that she was his, that all she wanted was him. It scared and delighted her. But it felt too good to push her away. It was almost everything she could want. Izuku didn't know if it was because it was his first kiss or it was his first kiss with her. He had dreamed of this moment, and now reality was overriding everything he had ever dreamed. In this simple but passionate kiss, he could feel all his worries and fears wash away in her arms. The feel of her lips made him feel like he could fly. His mind was dancing in the embrace. A singular thought roared to life in the back of his mind. Tsu gently placed her hand on his chest. Izuku took a step back, slightly worried. Did I go too far? I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to kiss you. I don't have any experience, and it just felt right. I am sorry if I made you upset. His ramble began. She gently placed a finger on his lips to stop him. No, not at all. I am so happy I could burst, she said. But the dreaded, but the most feared part of any conversation had reared its ugly head to intrude upon his moment. Strangely, fear and paranoia did not rack his body. Instead, he could feel that she was nervous, happy, but still nervous. It was strange. There is something essential I need to talk to you about. Can we sit? She said, gesturing towards the bed. He nodded as she led him to bed and sat beside him, taking both her hands in hers. Have you ever heard of imprinting? A little here and there, but nothing real. I think I read a study about it, he replied. Do you believe in it? I don't know. I cannot see why it wouldn't be possible. Why do you ask? Ever since that day by the lake, I haven't been able to get you out of my mind. I would think about you, imagining what you may be doing or would look like. It would keep me going whenever I felt down or doubted about being a hero. It was strange, but it made me feel better. After seeing your drawings, I think you know what I mean. Izuku nodded, blushing slightly. When I saw you again, I couldn't get you out of my mind, and it was worse. It was an ache to be near you. I was so jealous of Ochaco just talking to you. I wanted to climb in your lap and tell everyone that you were mine. Izuku's eyes widened as the same thought had crossed his mind moments ago. When I talked to my mom, she told me I had found my mate. I had imprinted on you, more than likely all those years ago, but we were so young. Now that I am older, it is this, she said, gesturing between the two of them. So your feeling for me may not be true? He asked, pain hovering at the edges of his voice as his gaze drifted to the floor. It is not that. It is that my feelings for you are only for you, and they only ever will be. No one will ever compare. No matter what you do or how you treat me, I will always be devoted to you. There have been cases where this has happened, and it has ended badly for the person that imprinted because they imprinted on a bad person. I know you are a good person. I am not afraid. I am telling you this, Izuku, because I want you to know that I will always be by your side no matter what happens. All I ask is that you take care of me. So does that mean I imprinted on you? He asked cautiously. I felt the same way you do when I saw you again, minus the mind part, but when we kissed again, it came to my mind. Mine. I don't know. Maybe it is possible if your family has a history of it or some animal quirks in your bloodline. If you did, it would be great. Even if you didn't, I know you would never abuse me or our bond. I trust you. I just wanted to be honest with you. I don't want any secrets between us. He could feel her sincerity deep in his very soul, her devotion, her nervousness. It was strange. It was like they were connected. He had also imprinted on her, but he still had a secret. He knew she wouldn't betray him after she told him about the imprinting. He could tell her anything. He didn't know much about relationships, but everything he had read or seen always showed him that keeping secrets was a good way to take a good thing and make it wrong. He realized that if he was evil, this could be abused, and it made him shudder. Telling me this must be hard for you. I bet you were nervous about how I would react. He began. But I promise I will never intentionally use this to make you do something you don't want to do. I hope that we can figure out a way to tell if the bond is making you agree, or if you want to agree. But before that, I need to tell you something, and I know I can because you would never betray me. Tsu nodded, feeling his anxiety. I never developed a quirk. I am not a late bloomer. What do you mean I have seen your quirk? Remember how you said on the bus how my quirk is like All Might's? She nodded. You were more right than you could know, but it is not like All Might's. It is All Might's quirk. Sue, needless to say, very confused. All Might's quirk is transferable. It has been around since the early days of quirks. It is called One for All and has been passed down 8 times in total, with me being the 9th. Sue watched as panic gripped his face, and she could feel him panicking. Desperately, he pulled his hand free, scrambling for his phone. Izuku, what's wrong? The panic spreading to her. Pick up, oh for the love of God, pick up. Hello, All Might, I may have messed up. No, I may have transferred All for One to Sue. Because we just kissed. This is not funny. Stop laughing. Thank God. Yes, I will explain. No, I promise. Thank you, All Might. She could feel the relief as he sat back down. Would you mind explaining? To transfer One for All, you need to ingest some DNA from the other person, like when we kissed. He said, blushing. But there has to be intent behind it, so we are okay? Sorry, I freaked out like that. You have All Might on speed dial? And he answers your calls. I promise I am not lying, he countered. All Might was hurt badly a few years ago, and he needed to find a successor, and he chose me. Izuku took a deep breath. So one day I was walking home. Sue sat in rapt attention as he told her everything. When he finished, she pulled him into a big hug. I know you could have been a hero even without a quirk. But I am thankful you do it to make things safer for you. You may have to restrain me from drop-kicking Bakugo, though. He fought back the tears. Everything she said was perfect. I will do my best, but sometimes he deserves it. Sue, would you like to share that piece of cake now? I would like nothing more, Izuku. Inko and Baru glanced at their children at the coffee table, sharing tea and the slice of cake. Even if they hadn't walked in on the two kissing, seeing how they felt about each other was plain to see. For Baru, it made her think of moments she shared with 𝗵𝗲, making her wonder if something had triggered in Izuku. She silently hoped and prayed that it was, so as that would make things so much easier for her daughter. She was still hopeful, even if it hadn't. Izuku seemed like a good boy, and his mother seemed pleasant, but as the saying goes, only time would tell. For Inko, it was just everything she could have hoped for. It was like a wild fantasy. Her son had gotten a quirk, entered hero school, made some friends, and had not only found the girl he had been dreaming of for all his life, but now they were a couple. Sue couldn't have wanted anything more at this moment besides the climb in his lap and snuggle in. It was a calling that invaded her mind at almost every opportunity. It was made worse by the kisses and how it felt when his arms were wrapped around her. She didn't know what she had expected when she came over today. She had just wanted to share this piece of cake. It was an absurd thought, this obsession with the cake, but after the USJ, she clung onto it as a symbol that by doing so, it would symbolize that everything would be all right. But then, well, everything else happened, and now the cake was this perfect symbol of a new beginning. She was with Izuku. She was now with her mate. She had shared with him the truth, and he had done the same. No secrets. It was all she could ask for, while beside the cuddling. Izuku didn't know why, but this longing to sit on the couch and have Sue in his lap almost drove him insane. He savored every piece of the cake. It was either the best cake in the world or maybe the situation he was eating it in. He didn't care. He wished his quirk would somehow make this cake last forever, a never-ending piece of cake. When they were finished, Inko came over and collected the plates as Baru decided to get some answers. I hate to interrupt the two of you, she began. But with what we have witnessed in the room and out here, can I safely assume that the two of you are now dating? Yes, ma'am, Izuku said, his voice breaking slightly. I hope it is all right, W. Was I supposed to ask for your blessing first? I thought that was only when marriage was brought up. B, but I can if you like. I am sorry if I offended you or your husband. Sue blushed at the word marriage. She knew that such a thing was far down the line, but due to her imprinting, she knew she would run off this second and do just that if he asked. No, Izuku, there was no need to ask for permission to date Tsuyu, but if you decide to get married later in life, you will need to talk with her father for his blessing. But that is tomorrow's problem. Now what is important though is, did Tsuyu talk to you about? If you are referring to the imprinting, then yes, she did, Izuku said, sitting up straight. I understand how such a thing could be abused and what that means for 𝗧𝗏. But I promise you that I will do my best always to keep that in mind when making any request or decision regarding your daughter. I have dreamed of her almost my whole life. No other girl has ever compared in my eyes. His voice was solid and trustworthy, ringing with determination. He looked Baru in the eyes when he spoke. 𝗧𝗏's heart quivered with delight, an excited ribbit escaping her lips, and a sudden warmth sprang inside her. She wanted to kiss the shib out of him immediately. She held back in a supreme act of willpower. Instead, she had to touch him. She slid her hand over to take hold of his. It may have been a mistake, as it felt like a bolt of electricity ran through her, settling in her gut. It was the most fantastic feeling she could remember. Izuku felt it, but he could ignore it while focusing on Baru and their conversation. Baru focused on Izuku, taking in the measure of his words and the determination he was showing her. She failed to notice 𝗬𝗏 scooting closer to Izuku. "What would you do if someone tried to take her from you?" Baru asked. "If she didn't want to go, they would have to kill me. As I know, that would never happen. They would have to kill me. As no woman could ever take me from 𝗬𝗏. No price, no offer could be made to take me from her and she from me. I can't explain it, but I felt it. Its possessiveness after we kissed. I can't think of the word. Mine," Baru said. As she said it, she looked over at her daughter and saw 𝗬𝗏's face was flushed, her cheeks rosy, and her breathing was more profound. Izuku looked down for a second. "Yes, mine. I am sorry that it sounds so crude, but it is the only word I can think of." Looking at 𝗬𝗏, he said the look in her eyes did things to him which shouldn't be happening in the living room in front of their respective mothers. "Mine," 𝗬𝗏 whispered, her voice hungry. Izuku understood something profound and told him that what 𝗬𝗏 was saying wasn't a question. It wasn't an uncertainty but a statement of fact. Baru was surprised. The tone and way he spoke were almost enough to make her think maybe he had imprinted in some fashion as well. The word "mine" spoke by both of them rang deep inside her very soul. It was how she felt about her husband. The feeling was so strong in the beginning, not to say it had lessened, but the overpowering emotion was a lot to deal with, and she and 𝐒𝐭𝐴Mon were much older than 𝗬𝗏 and Izuku are now. "I think it would be best if you two stayed in the living room for the remainder of the visit." Baru was worried that if they were left alone, especially if they had imprinted, the emotional overload might lead to the two into some carnal acts and possibility of 𝗬𝗏 going into spontaneous heat in reaction. "I think that would be for the best," 𝗬𝗏 said. The young couple got to live out another fantasy instead. Wordlessly, Izuku rose and sat on the couch, and 𝗬𝗏 climbed onto his lap, her legs off to the side, his arms around her waist, hers around his neck, their heads tilted forward, touching, their eyes closed. Just breathing in each other's essence, small, quiet, contented ribbits escaped 𝗬𝗏, and she was lost in the pleasure of doing what she had craved over this past week. They whispered to each other in quiet conversation, not even a complete sentence, but each understood more and more what the other was trying to convey. It was a quiet moment of pure bliss for them. Nothing mattered more than being here like this and in this moment. The forced cough of Baru and Inko symbolized that they needed to break apart, that she would be forced to leave this blissful embrace. "I wish we could stay like this," she whispered. "I do too," he replied. "Video call me when you get home so I can see more." "I promise, 𝗧𝗏." Lightly, delicately, she kissed his lips and pulled away, getting to her feet. He followed, holding her hand to the door. "Tomorrow?" he asked, hope bursting through in his voice. "Movies." "Movie," she responded. It wasn't a question but an answer of yes. "Later then." "Yes, later." Inko and Izuku. The Casualties left the apartment, Izuku standing at the railing, watching as they got into their car to head home. He stood watching the lights disappear into the evening. Once out of view, he leaned against the railing, his gaze still focused on where he had last seen the lights. Inko slowly emerged, slipping an arm around his waist as he put one around her shoulders. "Thank you for inviting her over. I know it was a bit of meddling on my part, but you did call her beautiful over the phone. I don't remember it, but this has to be the best day. Mom and I owe it all to you. 𝗬𝗏 is the one that inspired you, baby. She was the one that didn't falter when it mattered most. We put that behind us, though. It took time, but we did. I know, sweetie, but that doesn't mean I don't still think about it or kick myself some. I don't want to think what life would have been if she hadn't been there that day to lift you when you needed it most. I don't either, but what about the thing? I can't say either way, sweetie. It may be a two-way thing from what you are describing and what Baru and I talked about some while you were in your room. But if it isn't, you need to be extra careful, that's all. I know that is asking a lot, but if life hasn't been doing that same thing to you all your life, and especially since you met Mr. Yagi, then I don't know what more there is to ask, and I wouldn't care to find out. Speaking of Mr. Yagi, I should call him. I promised to fill him in, Izuku said as they returned inside. Baru and So today was a good day? Baru said as they made their way home. Today was a wonderful day. He accepted everything, said the right things, and I have faith that he will follow through, Tsu said, gazing out the window, a small smile on her face. You must tell your father about this when we get home. You know that, right? I do, and he will want to meet Izuku soon. It would only be fair. Mom. Yes, dear? Do you think he may have imprinted on me as well? Some of the things he said are the exact way I feel, the possessiveness, and he knew what I wanted with the cuddling. It's rare for those without an animal quirk, but I was talking with Inko, and they do have a history of it in their family, so there may be just no way to check. I hope so, and I kind of don't. Why is that? The idea of double imprinting is nice in how I see you and Dad. It has the fairy tale quality of love at first sight. For me, I guess I saw him and that was all. But if he didn't imprint, he would choose me instead of biology. Does that make any sense? The thought of the fairy tale is nice, but the fact that he chose you and will choose you over all others of his own free will makes you feel more special. Exactly, Tsu said, fidgeting in her seat. Does that make me bad? No, Tsu, it makes you a girl who wants to feel like the most important woman in her boyfriend's life. No matter who crosses his path, you outshine them all. Every woman or significant other wants to feel that way. Who wouldn't? Either way, I will be happy. I have faith, Tsu said, her gaze returning to the passing scenery. It may not always be perfect, but as long as we talk, it will be fine. Honesty and communication are key in any relationship, but since we are alone, we need to talk about birth control. Tsu exclaimed, her face heating up to a beautiful shade of red. We aren't ready for that, she said, regardless of what her thoughts immediately drifted to. Baru smiled knowingly. I understand that. Dear, you may say that, but your body will say otherwise if you are in an intimate position. Your mind will lose to your physical and primal desires, especially if he imprinted on you. You may also go into heat suddenly with the sudden life changes, so we need to address these issues before that happens. While the primal part of Tsu's brain began to fill her head with highly inappropriate fantasies, her higher mind was able to drive home at least the point that rushing into such a thing would not be the wisest of ideas, and neither would be raising some tadpoles as they are training to be heroes. She would immediately be set back as the one giving birth, and then how would they financially support them? While her higher brain was in control for the moment. You are probably right, Mom, Tsu said. I don't want to ruin both of our futures because biology took over too soon. I will get you scheduled as soon as possible, but try to avoid being alone too much for now. I promise. The #1 hero and his protege. That is certainly something young Midoriya, Toshi said after hearing about Izuku's day. The duo walked along the Takoba beach, seeing where Izuku had trained so hard to inherit One for All. It had become a special place for them. I saw others enjoying the beach, couples, friends, and families. I hope you are not angry, but I was already going to tell her, but then I had that panic attack, and she was right there when I called you, Izuku said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. I choose how to keep the secret of One for All, and while I could do so, it also came with a heavy price of loneliness. I never had the chance to experience romantic entanglements or have a family. It was a sacrifice that I chose to bear, but that was how I decided to do it. One for All is your quirk now, how or whom you choose to share your secret with. It is hard enough to lie to friends. I couldn't imagine lying to someone you care so much about. It was something I didn't want even to try, and after she shared about the imprinting, it wouldn't have felt right. It's a phenomenon poorly understood outside of specific communities, and for good reasons. It is something not widely talked about. I am sure that young Ajui spoke truly when she told you, and with that being the case, there is no way she could betray you. As far as possible companions for life and heroics, you could not have done much better, my boy. I think so too. But carry the knowledge with the same respect you give One for All. Cherish her and her feelings and the precious situation you find yourself in. I want to do right by her and by you. I have almost everything I could ever want and won't let it slip away without a fight. I want to be worthy of the gift you have bestowed upon me and of her. Izuku, I couldn't be prouder of not only the man I see you becoming but the hero you are growing into. I do not doubt my choice, and I know that even without the imprinting, 𝗬𝗍 will be proud of what you become. Thank you, Toshi. It means more than I can express. Toshi smiled at Izuku. Now tell me what the voices said again when you decided to kiss young Aizawa. Izuku blushed. 𝗬𝗍 and Izuku. That evening they spent the whole night talking. Sometimes there was much silence, but not in an awkward way. It was just comforting knowing the other was there. It was a combination of two love-struck teenagers experiencing their first love and all that chaos that came with it, and the quiet need to be near each other that had been the driving goal for them most of their lives. Each had dreamed of finding the other, some romantic spark, some magic to happen should that day ever come, and that day had come. There was a spark, magic, and every other adjective that could be assigned to it. Most would find it sickening, others clingy, but I was how life would be for them. Their grandchildren would make faces at how their grandparents would hold hands or steal kisses, but that is a story for the future. Tonight, it was trading secrets, planning for a date tomorrow, and taking the chaos, the pain, and the insanity of the past week and ignoring it for what mattered most at the moment, each other. Sunday. It could have been raining, and they might not have noticed, but it wasn't. The day was pleasant, not too hot, allowing 𝗬𝗍 to wear a green plaid skirt, a white blouse, and matching sandals. Izuku wore black pants with a nice green polo. He even brought her flowers. They met at the station, both arriving 20 minutes early. 𝗬𝗍 beat him by a minute because her train came just a bit faster, and they found each other instinctively under the clock tower. They held hands easily like they had done so thousands of times before walking into the shopping district. Izuku wasn't nervous or afraid. He felt calm and at peace, happy. He had never experienced happiness in life, and with that came a sense of contentment. 𝗬𝗍 was the same. Usually she would notice some looks others would give her due to her quirk, but today, if there were any, she saw none. It was everything they could want. They stopped in different shops, spent time in the bookstore, and discussed various things they liked. It was what date was supposed to deepen their understanding of each other. Of course, the movie was romantic, but I had been receiving rave reviews for the script and the chemistry between the actors. An early dinner capped off their date. They sat in the back of a lovely little cafe that served Italian fare. The company made the food better. Are we going to keep this a secret at school? She asked shyly. Could we? I know I couldn't, 𝗬𝗍. Izuku replied as they walked to the train station. I don't think I could either. If you don't mind, can we take another picture? She said, stopping to pose them in front of a fountain. After they smiled at their picture, as the station neared, they confirmed their plans to catch the same train in the morning. Cursing the punctuality of the rail system, they hugged tightly and shared a tender kiss before stepping onto their trains. Classes are set to resume tomorrow, and after the first week, one can't help but wonder what the next week has in store. It was cliché, he understood it was, but it didn't matter. He awoke before his alarm, and everything just seemed a bit brighter and more vibrant. Immediately, he grabbed his phone and fired off a text. Good morning, 𝗬𝗍. I can't wait to see you on the train. He had barely sent the message when a response immediately came in. Either she was the fastest texter in Japan, or she was sending hers when he sent his. 𝗬𝗍, good morning, Inko. I can't wait to see you soon. I already miss you. 𝗬𝗍, I was texting when you messaged. 𝗬𝗍, did you just wake up? Izuku, I did. All I could think about was how much I already missed you. Is that bad? Am I being too clingy already? Is this going to make you not like me? Is that possible? Oh God, I can't stop texting. 𝗬𝗍, you ramble even on text. That is so adorable. Izuku, I got nothing. 𝗬𝗍, you're wrong, you got me sent a photo, see you on the train. Izuku tapped the attachment and fell back on the bed. It was a photo of 𝗬𝗍 lying on her bed. It looked like she was blowing him a kiss and he could see the straps of her nightgown. It was not an ultra-provocative photo. He had seen her bare shoulders in her sundress on Saturday, but the knowledge that she was not wearing a bra and that she was lying in bed inflamed his young mind as he flopped over his face red and the goofiest smile on his face. It took him 10 minutes, which made him rush as not to miss his train. His morning workout would have to be trimmed. Trains, and the train. Sue sat on the train, a seat saved next to her in their compartment. She was filled with such nervous energy, wondering if somehow fate would deny them seeing each other. They had sent dozens of texts about leaving the house, at the station, etc. It was not like they were meeting to hand off top-secret documents that held the world's fate. But when the door opened, she could sense him. She had been staring at the door, and as soon as he stepped on, excited rib bits began to escape her lips. He immediately looked directly at her, and his smile beamed. It was her son. It warmed her so thoroughly. He moved over to sit next to her quickly. They looked at each other awkwardly, not sure how to greet each other, but their instincts took over, settling the debate. He wrapped her in a warm, tight embrace that she snuggled into. When they broke apart, she kissed his cheek, turning him into a blushing mess. "Good morning, my Izuku Ribbit," she said. "Good morning, Sue," he said, their heads leaning against each other. Sue looked him over, taking in all the details like she hadn't seen him the day before. She smiled at the haphazard way his tie was done. "Your tie looks terrible," she giggled. "That's not true. I am starting a new fashion trend. All the hip kids do it this way." She giggled again. "No, Izuku, they are not. Let me fix this," she said as she had him face her so she could retie the tie. As she did so, Izuku was lost in the simple act, staring at her. He could feel his heart rate increase as visions of them older and him in his suit heading to work and her fixing his tie. She was pregnant with their third child. At that point, his mind evolved into supplying the details of how she got pregnant, and he went nuclear, and his mind shut down to reboot. He snapped back as he felt a light kiss on his lips, seeing her smiling. "All done," she said. He looked down, and of course, it was perfect. He blushed again as his mind could still recall some things right before he shut down. He also made a silent vow to himself. He would never learn to tie a tie correctly for the rest of his life. They held hands for the rest of the ride, not saying anything, her head resting on his shoulder till they arrived at their stop. They stepped off into the morning light, heading to the cafe where they were greeted by the same hostess from before. She smiled brightly, seeing them holding hands. "How was the cake?" she asked. "Best cake ever," he said. "That's good. Are you kids okay?" "What do you mean?" Sue asked. The hostess held up her phone, showing the headline of UA attacked and the photo of Class 1A. She then zoomed in on the image to point out Izuku and Sue. "I recognized you too, and I was worried something had happened. The report said there were only minor injuries, so I figured you were, but I was hoping to see you two today to make sure." "Thank you for your concern," Sue said as they bowed. "Well then, your drinks and pastries are on us today for having to go through such a terrible thing and for a great piece of cake," she said, her purple eyes sparkling. "We couldn't," Izuku protested. "I insist. Besides, I have been seeing you two every day since the new term at UA started, and I get the feeling I will be seeing you more." She winked. "Now, what would you like?" The young couple blushed before placing their order and taking a seat. They sat and enjoyed their treats, talking a little about the coverage of the incident. Izuku hadn't watched any TV since the incident. The coverage ranged from outrage at the villains to blame be placed on UA for allowing such an incident to occur. They walked hand in hand to the campus. "You ready for everybody to know?" Izuku asked. "Of course, I want them all to know that you belong to me now," she said with a smile. "This is much more diplomatic than drop-kicking everyone whom I feel gets too friendly. Kero, though I may just drop-kick Bakugo on a matter of principle," she said, her finger taping the side of her mouth. Her head tilted to the side slightly. "Ochaco." Ochaco stepped off her train and had to fight the urge to run through the crowds. She wanted to hurry and see Izuku. They had talked some over the weekend, but she just wanted to double-check and see that he was okay. Some of the commuters on the train recognized her from the news coverage of the attack. Everyone was friendly enough to ask if she and her classmates were okay and tell her to keep her chin up and not to let this get her down. She noticed some of the UA students staring at her, particularly this boy with blonde hair. He seemed to be glaring. Ochaco ignored them once the door opened. She had a singular destination and thought. As she came into view of the campus, she quickly scanned the crowd and spotted her favorite mop of curly green hair, right next to another head of green hair, walking very close together, holding hands. Wait. They were holding hands, and she just kissed his cheek. Ochaco's shoulders slumped. She had a crush on Izuku. Ever since the entrance exam where he saved her, Did he know Tsu from before? She never even saw the two of them talking. She had figured Tsu's response at the USJ was from the trauma of the fight and being up close and personal during Izuku's battle with the villains. Seeing him pass out and all the blood had made Ochaco's heart skip a beat, but Tsu's reaction was downright desperate, and she was in complete trances afterward. And then she was holding that box of cake, it said for sharing. Tsu held it like it was a precious jewel or a family heirloom. Mineta had said something about cake when he came to help with Tsu. Eureka! A voice behind her pulled her out of her thoughts. Turning, she saw Tenya standing there. Are you okay? If you fear another attack, though I cannot do much to assuage your fears, I can tell you I am sure that UA will have increased security to prevent such an incident like last Friday never happening again. Oh, thank you, yeah, I was a bit nervous, Ochaco said. Yes, let us hurry to class. I must admit that I am anxious to see Midoriya. I was pleased to see his message that he was home. I hope he recovered from these injuries, he said as they started moving towards the campus. Yeah, I can't wait to see him as well. She set her gaze towards the ground. Tsu made her way to class minus her boyfriend, who had to see Recovery Girl for a final exam and a possible treatment. She had wanted to go with him, partially out of a desire to be near him, but also to make sure he was okay. Instead, she made her way to class. As she opened the door, she heard Toru. I didn't stand out. You could barely see me in the group photo. She pouted. You know that you are invisible, right? Zero said. Oh, you shut up. Maybe I must add something to my costume to help me stand out. Hey Tsu, how was your weekend? Toru said, turning to the door opening. It was nice, Karo. How was yours? Tsu responded, walking to take her seat. It was okay. My parents kept fussing over me, Toru said. How was your weekend? It was very nice. My family fussed over me, but after Friday, I needed it, Tsu responded. Has anyone talked to Midoriya? Mizo asked. Other than the text he sent me that he was okay, I haven't heard from him, Momo said. Mineta walked over to Tsu. Glad to see you are better, Tsu. Thank you, Mineta. How is your head? She responded. Still a little sore, but much better than Friday night. I overused my quirk, so that happens when I do that. Did you get to share that piece of cake or whatever you and Izuku were going about? He asked. Yes, it all worked out. Thank you for helping calm me down. I should thank you, and I need to thank Izuku. I am sorry for how I acted on the boat. It was wrong and... He shrugged. It was just plain wrong. I shouldn't have touched you like that or suggested that you be a distraction. That is not what a hero is supposed to do. I forgot what it was like to see what real heroes are supposed to be. You and Izuku reminded me of that. He closed his eyes and clenched his fists that hung at his side. I want to be a hero. I don't want to be a coward. Then that is a good start, Tsu said with a smile. Hey, Ochaco, Mina shouted as the Gravity Girl and Tenya entered the room. Have you heard from Midoriya at all? Huh? Oh yeah. I texted him Saturday morning when he was still in the hospital. He said he was sore but feeling all right. She said, moving to her seat. Is he not here yet? I saw him enter the campus ahead of me. No, maybe he had to go see Recovery Girl? Tenya added. Who the fuck cares where the hell he is? Will you all stop talking about him, for fuck's sake? Whoopie-doo. He get hurt. He was the only one because he is so goddamn useless. Katsuki shouted from his seat. Dude, that is fucked up, Denki said. Didn't he save you from getting smashed by that monster? He didn't save Saiti, Katsuki roared back. I would have been just fine. All he did was let that portal fucker get away when I had him pinned. Kirishima looked like he was about to say something but stopped. Yeah, my bad for thinking you could dodge that hit and still keep that portal guy pinned. Izuku's voice rang out as he opened the door. The other students shouted and ran towards him, asking him how he was. Izuku was touched. He didn't expect the whole class to care, except for Bakugo. He smiled and assured the class and his friends that he was okay, that he had just seen Recovery Girl for a minor treatment to clear up any lingering problems, and she gave him a clean bill of health. Ochaco was conflicted about what to do. She was so happy to see him, but didn't want to cross a line if something happened between him and Tsu. The crowd began to thin out when Momo called for people to get in their seats. She stepped forward and put on her best face as she walked up and hugged him quickly before stepping back. She was surprised when he didn't flinch. Now, I don't have to punch you into the sun. Are you okay though, Izuku? She asked. I am Ochaco. Aside from some funky scars, I am back at 100%, he said as he made his way to his seat. As the bell rang, a mummy shuffled in. Aizawa, the class exclaimed. Shouldn't you be in the hospital? Kirishima said. Nonsense, that old lady just went overboard on her treatment, and if you all are here, then I need to be here as well. I am here to tell you that the fight isn't over. Don't tell me it's the villains again? Minato exclaimed. Worse, the school has decided that the annual sports festival will move on as planned. Isn't it dangerous after what happened after the USJ? Ojiro said, giving voice to what everyone else was thinking. Security will be incredibly heightened, and remember, the sports festival is your best opportunity to get yourselves noticed by other pros to get invited for internships. You only get 3 chances during your stay here at UA this year because of the incident at the USJ. There will be more media attention on the first-year portion of the festival than ever before. Some things can be learned from the USJ. It was a terrible incident, but this is an opportunity for you all to use it to your advantage. It will be your best time to shine. And don't forget that this is an opportunity for a member of the business course or general studies to be promoted to the hero course, which means that should that happen, one of you may find yourselves on the way out. The news was enough to snap Ochaco out of her funk for the meantime. With the regular studies beginning, the class was surprised when 𝗵𝗃𝗄 cut the course short and told everyone to remain seated for a special announcement. The teacher boards at the front of the class parted, revealing a massive television screen. As it powered on, it was turned to the Japanese national news network. It showed an empty podium with the UA symbol and a room packed with reporters. The bottom of the screen read, All Might calls news conference. The entire class sat in silence as this was something significant that the school itself was stopping its day to have the students watch. The sudden clicking of the cameras announced the arrival of the nation's top hero, in all his glory, to stride across the stage, stopping at the podium and pausing as the reporters settled down. I want to thank you all for coming today and for everyone across the nation and the world that have taken time out of their day. I have come before you today to announce that I will be stepping back from my role as a hero. After doing this for over 40 years, time is the one villain I cannot defeat. This is not a retirement. The best way to use my time is to train the next generation of heroes at UA. I need to give them the attention they deserve so that I can fully know that Japan's future is in good hands when I retire. He paused as the lights from the cameras went crazy. This message is for all the criminals out there that may think that now is the time to slink out of the shadows, and that this is a calling for you to terrorize the citizens of Japan. I want you all to dare to try. For never forget I am here. Thank you for your time, All Might said as he walked off stage with the reporters yelling questions. The class sat there stunned. All their phones started buzzing furiously in their pockets as notifications went wild. Izuku pulled out his phone and fired off a text. Little Might, is this because of me? Big Might, no, my boy, this is because of me. We can talk at our usual spot tonight and be there at 7 p.m. Little Might, I promise. You okay, Izuku? Ochaco asked. She knew that All Might was his favorite hero. Yeah, Ochaco, I'm fine. He has been doing this for so long, he said with a weak smile. And he is doing this for all of us, right? He noticed the class had gone quiet looking at him. As he glanced around, he saw Momo nod at him to encourage him to speak. Slowly Izuku stood. Listen, everybody, All Might is stepping back for us. All of us in the hero course are in this room and in 1B. He is doing this because he believes in us and thinks we have what it takes to not only hold the nation together in a few years, but also move it forward. When the time does come for him to retire, it will be up to all of us to carry on for him. I know I am not the only one who is a huge fan of All Might here. While some of you crazy heads may have a different favorite hero. He added some levity. I'm looking at you, Ochaco. Hey, I like All Might, the girl said, smiling. But 13 is better. That's all, she laughed. Hell no, it's all about Crimson Riot. Ijiro yelled out. I think Ingenim is the best, Tenya said, smiling at Izuku. Are you all crazy? If it's not MT Lady or Midnight, you all are blind, said Minato. As more of the class called out their favorite heroes, they were all smiling. Izuku spoke up. I guess there are more crazy people than I thought in this class. He looked at every single one. The sports festival is our opportunity to show the world that the next generation of heroes is coming to carry the torch for All Might. It is our chance to show those bastards that attacked us at the USJ that we will not go away, and to show the whole of the world that we are here. He punctuated the last part by throwing his fist into the air. The entire class followed suit, even Bakugo. The lunch bell rang soon after, and everyone started to head out. Izuku went to join Sue when he felt a tug on his sleeve. Turning, he saw it was Ochaco. Hey, Izuku, would you mind hanging back a minute? She said, fidgeting nervously. I need to talk to you, and it's kind of private. Of course, Ochaco, he said. Go on without me, but save me a seat. Sue gave him a questioning look but nodded as she headed off with Kyoka and Toru. Once the room was clear, he was confident that no one was hanging back. Is everything all right? No, but yes, but it's confusing. She said her anxiety was building. Are you and Sue dating? Izuku breathed. Yes, we are. It happened over the weekend. Oh, I guessed as much. I saw the two of you this morning holding hands and stuff. Can I ask how it happened? She said, staring at the floor. We had met once a long time ago when we were 5. It greatly impacted me. I was very surprised when I saw her here. Then we realized it at the USJ with all the chaos. She came over, we talked, and confessed that we both had feelings for each other. I never stood a chance then, she said. What? He said. He couldn't keep his voice from sounding shocked. I have had a crush on you, Izuku, since the entrance exam. I know I shouldn't say anything, but I just wanted to tell you. I am not trying to make you choose between Sue and me. I didn't want to hold on to my feelings and mess up our friendship. I still want to be friends with you. You are an amazing guy, and that speech you gave after All Might's news conference was great. But I didn't want to keep this all inside and run the risk of ruining everything. Can I ask one thing? Sure, he said, slightly stunned from being confessed to for the second time in just a few days. He felt bad that she felt that way if he was honest with himself and he didn't have his connection with Sue or had never met her till Ochaco was nice and the kind of girl he could fall for, but his heart already belonged to Sue, and honestly none could compare to her. I wanted to hug you when I saw you were okay this morning. I was really worried about you after the USJ, but I didn't know if you were okay and stuff. He could see her wiping away tears. He stepped forward and pulled her in for a tight hug. I am okay, Ochaco. And I am sorry that I can't return your feelings, and I hope we can still be friends. You are the first real friend I have ever had, and I would hate to lose you. Ochaco was surprised by his gesture. As his words drifted to her ears, it reaffirmed how great of a person she thought he was. I promise I will always be your friend, and I want to be friends with Sue. But it will take time. Feelings just don't disappear. No, they don't, Ochaco, but we have time to work it all out. She stepped back from the embrace and gave him a small smile. Now, let's go to lunch before I get you in trouble with your girlfriend, or Mina and Toru start to gossip more than they already have. She lightly punched his arm. That was a good speech today. It got me fired up for the sports festival. I want to do my best. She grabbed her bag so they could leave. I never asked why you want to be a hero, he said, following her lead. She blushed and fidgeted. You will probably think less of me, but it's for the money. The money, he said. Ochaco didn't strike him as materialistic, so he was confused. I want to help people and be a role model as well, but my parents run a small construction company, and things have always been tight. They wouldn't let me help at the jobs or even go to school so I could get licensed to do so. Right with your Quirk, the need for heavy equipment would be almost nothing, and you could save them so much money, he said, smacking his fist into his palm. Exactly, she said excitedly, but they wouldn't have it. They wanted me to chase my dream of being a hero, even now with tuition and books. They even got me a small apartment to live in because I live so far away I couldn't commute. They have and are sacrificing so much for me that I want to take care of them so they don't have to work anymore. My big dream is to send them on a vacation to Hawaii. That is awesome, Ochaco, he said. There is nothing wrong with wanting to earn money to take care of those we love. I want to save everyone I can with a smile, but I also want to take care of my mom so she can relax. As long as you aren't just motivated to make all the money and hoard it like a dragon or something. Fear the dreaded dragon, Ochaco. She snarled, contorting her face. Izuku was stunned. They just stopped moving and were looking at each other and busted into laughter as they turned the corner to enter the cafeteria. People turned and looked at the two, cackling like a pair of crazy people. But let's do our best, Izuku. I want to meet you in the finals so the world knows we are here. Sounds good, but I must face the dragon Ochaco. I am out. It is not worth my life. The two started laughing again as they went to collect their lunch. The girls of the trio started walking down the hall, but Kyoka noticed the look Tsu had given Izuku, and on the way out, her curiosity was running wild. Thankfully, the art of distraction was provided by Toru and Mina, who had joined them. I wonder if there is a love confession going on? Mina said coyly, wiggling her eyebrows. That would be sweet, but to do it in the classroom? Toru said. I was always liked behind the gym or some other secluded spot. Just how many love confessions have you given? Kyoka said, earning a giggle from Momo. 2, Toru answered quickly. The first one was terrible, like evacuating the city. The second one went well. We dated for like 2 months, but he wasn't who I thought he was, so I bumped him. Harsh girl, Mina said. I have only given 1, but it was like the first year of middle school, so it didn't count. Don't look over here, Kyoka said, putting her hands up. I never went to school until now, so I have never given or received a love confession, Momo said. Do you think that Ochaco is confessing to Izuku? Everyone has a type, Mina said. He is kind of plain, but he seems nice. Kyoka saw Tsu's eyebrow twitch. What about you, Tsu? She said, nudging the frog girl. I have only confessed to 1 person, Karo, she said. And he is my boyfriend, so I guess I am 1 for 1. Wait, Mina said, shocked. You have a boyfriend? Yes, and he is all mine, she said. Kyoka quickly figured out that 2 + 2 potato. And if someone else was doing the same thing right now? I know he is faithful, she said with a smirk. Wait, Tsu, Momo said suddenly. Are you and Izuku dating? No, 𝗬𝗎. Mina added. Shut the front door, Toru said, halting her step in shock. Yup, Tsu said casually. When did this happen? Kyoka asked her friend. This weekend, on Saturday to be exact. We went on a date Sunday, and it was great, Tsu said wistfully. We met once when we were 5, and I could never get him out of my head. I thought he didn't remember, but then he said something at the USJ, and then one thing led to another. You? And Midoriya? Mina said as they entered the cafeteria. Tsu just laughed as she grabbed a tray. Yes, me and Kyoka knew there was something more but didn't want to bring it up with the present company. Once they sat down with their food, Mina and Toru leaned in. Okay, give us all the details. Tsu blushed. So I talked to him on Friday night, and I think he was on painkillers or something because he was a little loopy. I asked him how long he knew I was the girl from the river where we first met, and he told me he knew the first day and that he could never forget because I was too beautiful. I thought I was hearing things, and then he said it again. 𝗬𝗎, the girls said in unison. His mom invited me and my mom over so I could share that piece of cake with him. I know it was silly, but if I could do that, I felt everything would be okay. So we went over there and asked him if he meant it. He said it was all true and that he had always thought about me since that day when we were kids, and he showed me pictures he drew. Tsu looked off for a minute. He then said, no other girl or woman he had ever seen was as beautiful as me, and then I kissed him. You kissed him, Kyoka said, maybe a little loud. Right then and there? Yes, she said, blushing, looking down. We may have gotten caught by our moms. This caused the girls to burst out into laughter. Soon, congratulations were being thrown around as they settled into asking Tsu about their date on Sunday. When the Ochaco and Izuku entered, their laughter drew attention, but the two didn't notice before grabbing their food. Ochaco came and sat at the table with the girls as Izuku was forced to sit with some of the guys from class. Did I miss anything? She said, taking her seat. Tsu and Izuku are dating, Mina said proudly. Yeah, he told me in the classroom, but I had already figured it out. She said, taking a bit of her food. I saw her kiss his cheek this morning before school, and they held hands. So, what did you want to talk to him about? Toru asked. I wanted to make sure that he was okay. I was really worried about him after the USJ, she said. I am happy for you, Tsu. He is a great person. Thank you, Ochaco, Tsu said. I know you two are friends. I hope we can also be friends. I would like that, Ochaco said. The boys of sit with us, Izuku. Mineta called as Ochaco took the last seat with the girls. Izuku smiled and took a seat. Glad to see that you are doing good. Yeah, man, that was some manly stuff at the USJ, Ijiro said. Hey, Izuku, what black stuff you fired to yank that hand guy around? Zero added. I don't know, he said. It just happened. He rolled his sleeve to show them the scars. I haven't tried to do it again. Recovery girl can be super scary. Midoriya 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 said, calling his attention. I wanted to thank you for your speech after All Might's announcement. I like it. I am sure most of the others hold All Might in high regard, and the news of his stepping back was quite unexpected and troublesome, especially after the USJ. But I found your words inspiring and helped refocus my mind. I agree with 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 said. Good job saying what was needed. Yes, as our classmates have said, you did a great job lifting the class's spirits, my friend, Ida added with a broad smile. Your words were quite passionate and inspiring. Thank you, everyone. I want you all to know I meant it. I want us all to do our best at the sports festival, he said, smiling. I have to ask a question, Minato said. What was your obsession with cake at the USJ? And why was Sue talking about it? Well, you see, Izuku fidgeted nervously. We had gone to a cafe that morning, and the waitress just slipped in, and we said we would share it later. Then, after the USJ, it was like a symbol that everything would be okay. He blushed as he explained. That sounds like something you would do with a girl you like. Yo, wait, do you like Sue? Denki, who had been silent, suddenly asked. Yeah, he said, looking down. Whoa, he admitted it. Zero said. Manly, Ijiro added. While matters of the heart are important, do not let it distract from your heroic pursuits, Tenya said, adjusting his glasses. She may already be spoken for, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 said. I must admit I found her quite striking once my gaze filled her visage. She is quite the fair maiden. But she informed me as we headed to the observation room that she had her eye on someone. She shot him down very fast. Dark Shadow said, popping out and patting 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 on the back. Well, I think you should go for it, Minato said, taking some of his food. The two of you inspired me at the USJ, and you have that whole cake thing. You should use that to ask her out on a date. Bro, I thought you would be all jealous and shit, Denki teased his friend. I am, Minato said, but I forgot what it was to try and be a hero. Sue and Izuku reminded me of that. I am sorry, Izuku, for how I acted. As long as you keep trying, Minato, I would happily call you a friend, he said before blushing more. And well, we have already shared the cake and are now a couple. The table erupted as they started firing questions quickly at Izuku. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 looked a little sad, but he congratulated him. Izuku did his best to answer the questions by painting a hasty picture of the weekend's events. However, he did blush and stutter some when admitting to the fact that they had already kissed. That turned into Zero, Minato, and Denki teasing him. As it happened, he couldn't help but smile as it wasn't like 𝐒𝐪𝐴. There was no malicious intent behind it. It was all in good fun. Yo, what happens if you two have to fight at the sports festival? Denki said as they cleared their trays. I won't like it, Izuku said. But we all are striving to do our very best, and this isn't just for getting noticed. We are sending a message, right? He looked at the others. Right, Ijiro said. We are here. Correct. This is now about more than just trying to attract the attention of pro heroes. This is about showing everyone what we got, Tenya said, patting Izuku on the back. After the USJ, I would much rather battle you guys than those villains again. Minato shuddered at the thought. You guys are just trying to beat me up. They were trying to do much worse things than that. Yeah, except if you fight Bakugo. But he just seems like he wants to beat everyone, Zero added. I look forward to the opportunity, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 said, surprising everyone. Despite his attitude, his quirk is very strong. If I could put up a good fight and maybe even win, that would help show the pros in the world that we are here. I just hope I can avoid him, Todoroki, and you 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 in the first round, Denki said. Me. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿 responded, a little off guard. You are quite strong, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿, Tenya said. It would be a daunting task between you and Dark Shadow. That's right, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗁, and I will take the whole thing. Dark Shadow said, raising his and 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿's arms in victory. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗁 blushed as he attempted to lower his arms. As the boys walked towards the exit, the girls came over with Sue walking up and slipping her arm around Izuku's waist. The outburst of teasing from the assembled groups soon turned into laughter, as they returned to class for the afternoon session. Declarations of war. With the signal of the end of the day, the class gathered their things and began to head towards the door. Ochaco opened the door to find the hallway full of students looking at them. "Excuse me," she said. "Can we help you with something?" "What is going on, Ochaco?" Izuku said, walking up behind her. Seeing the assembled group, he gently touched her shoulder and pulled her behind him. "You're Class 1B, he said to one group before turning to the other. "I assume you are in the General Studies course." "What are they here for?" Ochaco asked. "The sports festival," Izuku said calmly. He hadn't noticed that Bakugo came up and took a position on his right side. "They are here to scout out the competition." Bakugo growled. "Yes, with all this talk of Class 1A and their hogging of the spotlight, we wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And I must say I am not impressed." A young man of average height with slick blonde hair, which got shorter the further down his head, styled so that it's parted to the right, his bangs left hanging over his right eye. Periwinkle blue eyes, a contemptuous smirk, and a slight head tilt added to a look of disdain he was giving 1A. "Yeah, you think because you beat up some D-list villains that you are all hot shit." A young man with messy gray hair that reaches his chin and black eyes with thick, jagged tan eyelashes that tilt inwards. "This mother." Bakugo didn't get to finish that statement as Izuku turned to him. "Give me a minute before you blow them off the planet?" "Fine. Only because you know I can do it," he said with a tongue click. "Such arrogance," the blonde exclaimed. Irony seemed lost on him. "Know this, 1A. We have come to declare war on you. We will show the world that you are simply the inferior hero course and that 1B is superior in every way. We are coming for you as well." The young man standing before them is fairly tall, with messy indigo hair that flares out in large tufts around his head. His eyes are a striking shade of purple with white pupils. They appear half-closed, and he has noticeable dark eye bags underneath them. "This is the chance for the General Studies to take a seat from you, 1A. This is war." 30 seconds, Bakugo whispered. "Are both of you done?" Izuku said, stepping forward. His tone took his classmates back. "We all heard All Might's announcement today, right?" He waited for those in the hall to acknowledge him. "You can come here and make all the declarations of war, or that you are going to come to take our seats or whatever, but it won't matter in the end." 1B, who said you were inferior? "Not us. General Studies, we welcome you to come try and take our seats. We fought to get into them, and you can bet we will fight to keep them." He took another step out of the class, Bakugo, Ochaco, Tsu, and Mineta coming out with him. "We have no intention of surrendering our spots to anyone. All Might is stepping back for all of us because he believes in all of us. This is all of our opportunities. I mean everyone, 1A, 1B, support course, general studies, business course for all of us to show the world that we are here, not I, here but we." He stepped out, and more of his class filed out behind him. "Declare your war, declare whatever you want." He took another step. All of 1A was not in the hall. "Scream and do what you want. We will stand here and say, we are here. We are here." 1A shouted with him. "See you all at the sports festival," he said, extending his hand to Tsu as the crowd parted and Class 1A walked away.